so stoked to have you guys here today. It's going to be
Right, let's go. This is the mid-season update show.
Snacks, got your drinks. Strap in because
Get your snacks, get your drinks.
We got tons.
I'm gonna be a bit dark this time.
Ton of awesome skins.
Sorry about that.
Including the Avatar
Middle of the night here.
And a rework and a remodel. And here to break things down with me, I got AJ and Pond from Design. How are you guys doing?
And we're gonna get one rework. Okay, we're not gonna get both. So we're getting red first, I guess. Not Loki.
I
suppose.
I would be wearing a new shirt, but I did not know all of y'all would be wearing a new shirt.
Oh, they're wearing the
Apparently
Ajax. I'm addressing the Ajax shirt.
For sure.
Definitely. Yeah, I had to actually venture out of the apartment to go get it, but it's been going good.
I ordered mine day one that they went online, and it got here just in time.
Oh, 1 sec.
You know, we had to get prepped and ready to go. And it's going to be a long show, so let's go ahead and get right to it, guys. We're going to kick it off with the bonus update that's going to be live next Tuesday, June 20th. And let's kick it off with bonus balance. Aphrodite going to be up first. Undying
again.
Her ultimate ability. We're increasing the cooldown from 90 down to 70, and it's going to be 90 seconds.
Yeah, turn him up.
Here.
Aphrodite's still putting up some pretty big numbers. This is a counterplay focused change, right? This item provides.
Hope the volume is good.
Ability provides. We're going to talk about a lot of items, but immunity and CC immunity, damage immunity and CC immunity for 2 people on a team. That's a really, really big fight swinging type of ultimate, and low cooldown, and especially a low cooldown plus a low cooldown build, can make it really hard to find windows where you can actually make a play against Aphrodite. So something like this is going to help a lot of counterplay against
Surprising.
her.
I thought the last nerf was going to be enough.
For sure. All right, next up, Cthulhu. The big boy is getting a little bit of a nerf here in bonus balance.
Not surprising.
Into Madness, his ultimate ability. We're going to be increasing the cooldown there from 100 seconds to 120. We're also removing some damage mitigation during the windup.
Nice.
And Transfuse,
very good.
The ultimate 3. We're going to be reducing the healing on that.
Yeah, it was really fun watching his release. It seems like he's been driving some people insane. Some people thinking he's really, really strong. Some people think he's a little underwhelming.
Nuts.
Yeah, we're on the edge of he's pretty strong. We're looking to deal with some frustration issues people are having. The ultimate is obviously a really big swing kind of play that you can make. We're gonna make this cooldown a bit more appropriate for that level of power and give a little more counter.
Scroll down, I can't see.
You're trying to burst him, you can't just use this as an immediate effective immunity. And then Transfuse provides some healing and some extra utility, toning that back down. Just hits towards like that big key moment. Overall, he's doing really well, and we're excited to see how people keep playing with him.
For sure.
Oh yeah, that's a good move.
Next, Heimdall, we're going to be seeing a nerf to Galahorn, decreasing the knockback strength on that ability. And then the Bifrost, we're going to be increasing the base time it takes to teleport.
Here I'm singing a similar tune as Aphrodite. These are big counterplay changes.
That's a massive one.
Heimdall
The second one is a big complaint.
Mostly to interrupt people that are diving on him to gank him. And the Bifrost, that is a pretty big change actually. 0.3 seconds might look like a relatively small amount, but in terms of combat inside of SMITE,
huge.
That's a relatively long time. And that is referring to specifically the time he has to stand inside of his own crystal before he teleports out. So increasing that, it's gonna, both of these changes combined are gonna make Heimdall
almost a second to get out.
Play. Really, he's got really strong damage and some control elements, which are kind of his features. He really is not supposed to have so much safety. So both of these nerfs are there to address that.
All right, we got a nerf for a Norse Hunter. Now it's time for a Norse Mage. Hell, going to be seeing a nerf here in our next bonus update. Decay/Restoration. We're going to be decreasing the damage on that. It's going to count for both the light and the dark stance. And then we're also going to be decreasing
that's a competitive target nerf
on the light stance for this ability.
Yeah, so we saw a lot of people really pick up Hell and see that as this very valuable mage. Her early game bullying potential is obviously very high, and the sustain she brings to a team are really high. So we're toning back both those aspects. The base damage on Decay and Restoration will kind of like limit her lane bullying ability, as well as the decreased scale on the healing will just affect her healing over the course of the whole game. I feel like these 2 adjustments are going to bring her down just the notch that we need to.
All right.
I'm okay with that.
Just Norseland. We're just in Asgard. Another Norse god, a guardian this time. Jormungand, the World Serpent. This is a general change. We're just going to be decreasing the basic attack damage on Jormungand.
Yes, especially with the Warrior's Blessing changes we've seen recently, that was mitigating a lot of Yorm's basic attack damage. Now he's doing more damage.
Like I said,
he was already pretty clearly in the meta.
No, somebody else pointed out first.
Pro play, but he was definitely still a contender. That Warrior's Blessing change pushed him back into the top slot, and here we are to readjust again And we're going to see a lot of solo lane changes later in today's show, so spoiler alert.
Yeah.
But we don't want Jormungandr to really be there bullying people out when we want to have a good time for experimentation with the new items and other gods that we're buffing today. So hopefully this makes it a nice open playing field for the mid-season patch.
It just evens it out. Lois is clear though.
Right along. Yeah. Next up is Nike. She came out of nowhere and saw some pro league play, and players tend to agree that she's pretty strong. So we're going to be seeing a nerf to her barrier formation, decreasing the damage on that ability. And then Sentinel of Zeus, her ultimate. We're going to be decreasing the slow duration from 6 seconds at all ranks, and then making it scale up from 4 seconds to 6 seconds.
Oh wow!
Yeah, we saw especially Nike jungle really was a thing that like pushed Nike into the forefront of competitive play, and then we saw some more flexible play from Nike outside of that. But the base damage on barrier formation was contributing a lot to clear and bullying capability, and especially that level 5. Your ult, that 6-second duration slow, was really the thing that pushed her over the edge. We're toning that back down to 4 seconds, giving players more opportunity to counterplay around it, but keeping the strength of her late game team fight.
All right, next up on the list is Sobek, and we're going to be seeing a nerf to lurking in the waters here. We're going to be decreasing the protections that he gains.
Sobek did nothing wrong, guys.
This character is still one of the top played gods in ranked Conquest. Has been for most of the season so far, since some buffs we did recently.
He deserves it.
We did a little bit of a nerf a couple patches ago, and now we're looking at another one here.
He was so low for so long.
Lurking in the waters is an ability that does a lot of things, right? It can do pretty big damage if you make sure you complete that channel time. It also makes Sobek really, really hard to kill. Sobek is already pretty good at escaping from dangerous situations. Sometimes, missing that pluck can mean certain death for Sobek, but other times he gets out of things that you are just like, there is no reason that should have happened. So here we're just going to decrease this protection bonus a little bit, make sure that he has those available punish windows. Again, a similar theme as you've seen us addressing some of these other changes here today. We think that with these strong gods, regardless of where their win rate lies, a lot of times counterplay issues are what cause a lot of the frustration. So you see that we're here really focusing on that today.
All right, last up for bonus balance, we've got Yamoja. We're going to be making a change to Mending Waters, decreasing the shield, and then Riptide, we're going to be decreasing the movement speed bonus that allies gain after traveling through the Riptide.
Wow, huge nerf.
I think we saw near, if not 100% pick ban for Yamoja, which is why she's kind of on this list still. Just the utility that she really brings to a team fight and that flexibility.
Riptide,
system.
It's okay.
It allows you to just spam heals and shielding on people, or to get them out of trouble, or to try and pick people with Riptide. We're just taking away some of the safety of the shielding, as well as the utility of the Riptide for her own team, allowing teams to really kind of chase after Yamoja a bit more effectively.
Cool. Well, that wraps it up for bonus balance, guys. Those changes are going to be live in game for you guys next week, June 30th. We've also got a few awesome skins that we want to show off. The first one being Living Weapon Tier. This is going to be a part of the Grim Omens event.
Oh, yes. I've seen that again.
So if you guys haven't bought into Grim Omens yet, tons of awesome content there. And this tier skin is really, really cool.
I really like how this one turned out. This was a kind of a difficult one when we were first coming up with the idea, but the artist execution across the concept and modeling team. Yeah.
Oh my gosh. Oh man, that hand is so creepy.
I didn't even realize the hand was like that. I feel like it was cut off on the
it's really a new take on a sort of mutant or maybe a little bit demonic type of theme.
Yeah, for sure. The more I look at it, like the more things I notice that are just insanely creepy. Like he's got an entire mouth just on his side underneath his arm, and it's just like, how did that even get there? And apparently I heard from the animation team that this one has some sort of unique animation that plays randomly. So
yes,
you guys are playing against this.
Scary jaws open up and he has this like big lizard tongue that comes out, and it is like, you'll see it if you go into the game and you go to the god selection screen to look at his model in the game. You'll definitely see it. It's awesome.
Yeah, that's creepy. All right, next up for Grim Omens, the last skin in Chapter 4 is Mystical Manipulator Nox, and this one is really cool.
By the way, I really think that
so another of our
bonus balance changes as a whole were pretty good,
but with a twist.
Surprising many, but
a bunch of the Mystic skins earlier. I think it was mostly last year, and this one we were looking at Nox, and we thought about really kind of approaching it almost more from the villain aspect, but within that theme.
Yeah, when writing
Cool. So,
the voice pack for this, we really saw like kind of like exploring like the idea that the mystic like archers kind of come in and like ruin her plans all the time, and she's done with that.
super cool. Yeah, so now you've got a full team of Mystic Archers, and now you got the villain to fight against. It's going to be super cool. All right, the last skin for the bonus update that we want to show off today is Galaxy Forger Vulcan. This is another one in our new recent take on the Galaxy theme, and these are some of my favorite that we've done.
Vulcan was a great choice for this theme. The way he constructs things, and he's got his turret there and his hammer. It's a really cool idea.
Oh my gosh, I love the like black hole in the head. That's just cool. It's a really cool focal point. Oh, look at that hammer.
Super cool too.
Yeah,
yeah, it's dope.
I like that one. I like that theme in general.
Prism structure on it,
but
so
that
it's like a solid object.
one also doesn't stand out to me as much.
Really nice.
I love how these have like you can see like the stars floating and all the textures. These the art team just knocks these out of the park. It's super cool. All right, that is it for our bonus update. That'll be live for you guys next week on June 30th. Now we just want to take a little bit of time to talk about some community news for you guys. The first thing that we want to talk about is you guys all see it. We're all rocking the For Fans by Fans merch that is newly available. All that stuff is available now. Tons of community created designs, shirts, hoodies, mouse pads, backpacks. Tons of awesome stuff that you guys can pick up. And I also want to give a short shout out to Zelgot, who actually won the competition. And if you guys haven't played
Fanforge is the name.
Play a game and unlock this avatar in game for free.
Nice.
And we got a shout out to our guy Rage and Cajun for designing this specific
sure.
shirt that all three of us are wearing today.
Yeah. It's great.
But there's a lot of other really cool designs on there. This one's a little more comedic, but if you're looking for something more serious, we have a few from Rob Draws that are beautiful. There's some really cool stuff. There's some cute ones. There's some serious ones. We got a really good selection.
For sure. All right, last up for community news, I gotta plug the Maxnomic chair. I'm not Dulcin, so I'm gonna try my best here.
Okay, I'm just gonna say, check out those artists they mentioned.
And we've got the code SMITE
because they're both really good.
For a discount. And I actually heard they're actually throwing in a free embroidery to put your gamer tag or in-game name.
Yeah.
So yeah, like I said, I'm not Dulcin, but here's a.
I don't think they should put that on the patch notes, to be honest. Oh, I might have to. Oh, Jesus, really? Oh. Come on, dude. I'm not a fan of this. I'm not a fan of making... Like, I understand that they have their sponsor deal, but I'm not a fan of making the patch notes a marketing platform for that, so... Really not. I cannot tell you anything about the quality of the chair, but still. Maybe it's good. But I don't think this is what I want to spend my time on patch notes on.
Chair is looking super clean. Hope you guys are comfy because we're getting ready to lock in and start talking about the mid-season update.
I'm not. My chair is horrible, but I still gotta get that one.
And the first thing that we want to talk about is mastery skins. It looks like Kronos, Kumbhakarna, Yanis, and Agni are gonna have their mastery skins updated. And correct me if I'm wrong, AJ, but we're done.
I'm honestly afraid to say that myself because it's something that has been 3 or 4 years in the making, but I believe as of now we have updated all of the Gods Mastery skins to the newer, higher quality style, and it's just, I mean, it's been a massive task. It feels very good to have finally completed it.
I want to see the new ones.
Right, it's like the feeling you get when you finally check off that thing that's been on your to-do list for 3 years.
Yeah, for actual years, and you know they look great, of course. So. Looking forward to having all of the people who main those characters be able to finally bring themselves into
show them
new mastery skins.
Yeah, I think we saw the Reddit thread about Kumba like literally yesterday.
Yeah, there was. He looks much better now.
Definitely. Speaking of looking much better, the God of War is going to be looking a whole lot better in mid-season update. He is getting a visual update. We kind of hinted at it a couple shows ago, but the Ares visual update is coming out in the mid-season update. His base model, recolor, and mastery skins are all
Nice.
getting an update, and that card
Card
art
looks
is
good.
so dope.
By the way, I didn't
It
turn down
really is.
Isaiah. He turned
The
himself down.
model is
I don't know why.
amazing. It's absolutely amazing. Are we gonna jump into game to look at it today?
Yep, I believe we have turnaround videos for the base model gear that we'll be able to show. There we go.
Ooh, that is an
His
upgrade.
hands,
Finally,
they're
like the God of
normal.
War.
Oh my god,
And
that is a
don't forget that
huge
recolor-
upgrade.
So dope.
Ares recolor with the all black armor is also one of the coolest recolors in the game. So when
Wow.
you see that one with the new model, it looks so good. The masteries, the art team. I'm so stoked about this. You know I'm a big Ares player.
It's maybe the
and
best
he
remodel
looks absolutely
yet.
gorgeous.
For sure.
Oh, there
it
There's
is,
the
yes.
card art for the recolor.
Jeez.
I don't think we have
So
the
good.
models ready for the recolor and the mastery, but you'll be able to see them in game.
That's
once they go
amazing.
out live on PTS, and they look so clean.
And the most important thing about this whole update to some of our veteran players is that the classic skin will still be available in the
yeah.
game.
Good
If you
job.
want to still look like original retro Ares, you will be able to acquire that similarly in the way that you did for the ISIS redo.
Cool. All right, we got.
I actually
one
forgot
more
how we got
topic
that
of
one.
Project Glimpse that we want to talk about, and it's bonus chests. It's been a long time. We've been hearing feedback from players like, I got all these chests that I'm sitting on that I can't open. So we're actually making some changes to how we handle bonus chests next update. We'll have a blog out later on this week that kind of goes into more detail. But the TLDR is that we're adding some extra items to those chests that you initially aren't able to roll right now, that you'll be able to roll and get rewards. And depending on the tier of the chest, you'll get different rewards. So it looks like for like things like the divine and awesome chest, you'll be able to roll those and get gems. And then things like the champion, godlike, and hero chest, you'll be able to now roll those and get team boosters if you own everything in the chest.
Long time community request there. So those chests that you just haven't been able to get anything out of because you acquired the content none other ways, we're now going to give you straight up gems for those better chests, which is really nice. So
That's neat.
yeah, a lot more
For sure.
changes to the chests, and we're going to give a lot more detail when we release that blog later in the week.
All right, you guys ready to talk about balance?
For like the next hour and a half. Sure.
Yeah, we'll
Go.
see if we can get it done in a reasonable amount of time. It's so much stuff.
All right, let's go ahead and kick it off. And for you guys watching at home, patch notes are live on the site right now if you guys want to follow along. So let's go ahead and start. Let's talk about ranked Pon. What we got going on for ranked coming in mid-season?
Yeah, so ranked, we're doing this is the kind of mid-season update we have for ranked. The big things here are we're doing the kind of same style of variance reset and the reset for the top end players. We saw a lot of success with that over the course of this whole kind of like season so far. We're continuing to keep it going, as well as this is the first time this year that we're resetting the God leaderboard as well. So we stopped resetting the God leaderboard, allowed you to kind of build up your like, maybe you had like 5 gods you're really good with, you want to get them all to like diamond and show that off, you definitely could. But now we're resetting that, so now maybe there'll be another number 1 Kuzenbo main or another 1 Thanatos main. So you gotta actually play for those things. We have some more stuff in the works that we're trying to get out to you that we want to get out for mid-season, but we couldn't quite get there. So we'll have an update for that as soon as we can.
Cool. All right, stay tuned for more updates on ranked. All right, next up, let's talk about Joust really quick. We're making some changes to the mode here, and it looks like we're going to be removing some protection scalings from fire minions, as well as decreasing their health scaling and their max health scaling. For
Very
the
important
fire,
to note that
both
this,
Sorry
will
about
affect,
that.
archers.
this will affect Joust and Duel.
Mhm.
So we did some balance on this throughout the year.
Alright, let's have
We've
a
been getting some
complaining cat
feedback
here.
from, especially from Duel players, that these extra tanky late game fire minions are kind of causing anticlimactic matches. So we're going to be toning that down, make sure you really have to rely on that God versus God combat to end the game.
Okay, good.
All right,
I know that was a big complaint.
let's get into the meat and potatoes of the update. Let's talk about Conquest, guys. Give me the general idea of what's happening with Conquest in mid-season.
Yeah, this is probably better for
Pon-Pon-
AJ. No, I'll get it.
We were
Okay.
both trying to throw it to each other. Pon, you're my jungler. But this
Yeah.
isn't for
Yes.
this isn't just for the jungle. It is a jungle
Oh,
update,
yes,
but
please.
obviously in Smite the jungle affects everyone.
Yes. So the big things that we're having here is the jungle is now going to be a much more living entity of the map. all the jungle camps as a whole are getting these new kind of treatments. Some of them will actually defend their own home territory. Some will be a bit more defensive. Each will have different abilities that you kind of have to play around. And if you don't play around them, you're going to be taking more damage. And that's all kind of culminating with as well as some changes to the pacing of the jungle, how difficult they are to kill for both players who aren't junglers and junglers. So there's a lot to go over here, but we really did want to kind of overhaul the jungle, make it feel more living, make it feel like a bit more threatening, and something that with more investment that everyone could feel good about.
Let's go.
Well said.
Sure. And obviously, these are major changes here, but we're also looking towards Conquest for next season. Isn't that right, AJ?
Yes, we are comfortable to say today that in Season 8, there will be a new Conquest map. Not going to say anything more than that. We just want people to know that Conquest is still very important to us as a development team. And this current map, we think, has been very successful. We've learned a lot of things from it, and we've had a lot of fun with it. But in Season 8, we will be bringing a new Conquest map to SMITE.
Not surprised, but very happy.
Exciting news. I cannot wait. All right, let's go ahead and start breaking things down. Let's start with the Jungle Shrine. We're making some changes here. Now it's in mid-season, it's only going to require a single attack to claim the full bounty, and then we're also increasing the gold per stack from 5 to 10.
Wow.
Double it, Pon Pon.
Yep.
That's huge.
Yep, it's we got some feedback that the Jungle Shrine and optimizing the Jungle Shrine in particular didn't feel like a meaningful decision to make in the match. Sure, you could optimize it, but the reward wasn't quite there. The reward is much more there, as well as it now takes a single attack to fully claim, so no more like having to like actually
Feels
sit
so
there
good.
and wail on it for a while. You can just kind of like as you're going to your next camp, swing at it and get it. But the most important thing is being there to claim it.
Cool.
350
All right,
gold
and,
across the team.
Before we hop into the jungle, let's talk about lane minions really quick. We're making some adjustments, mostly to the AI. Pon, you want to go into detail on kind of the things that we're doing here?
Yeah, so we took a look at the AI for the minions. We know that there have been some like complaints about how they behave. Sometimes they don't feel very responsive. So now we have separate AI trees for both melee and archer. So in the future, especially, we can do a lot of separate treatment for them. But we did a performance pass on them to make sure that they were performative. Obviously, whenever you have something that's there times 72, you have to make sure that it's gonna work well. But the big things to note is the way they path to lane, the kind of jostling that we get, where sometimes the archer and the melee can kind of swap places or they get bunched up. That should be lessened. It'll be we've done some things to make their pathing smoother and make sure that they are moving to their locations as they should, as well as they are now going to be much more responsive and actually seeing you walk into lane. So no more you walk into lane, just ignore you for a whole second. Now they'll be pretty snappy to actually look at you. And the final big thing, which will actually change a lot of how minion grouping works, is right now they currently target the same target until that target dies and then they choose a new one. Now after every shot they will retarget to their closest target, which means minion waves now kind of more evenly trade, and you're more likely to see them kind of bunch up in the center of the lane rather than like kind of snowball to one side and snowball there. So lots of changes that are going on there. It'll be really interesting to see you guys actually play around with them. But AI overall has kind of happened for these minions.
Big
interesting
competitive implications here. You know, we've always kind of had some feedback about lane minions feeling a little inconsistent or sometimes really pushing waves even when no one was there. So now they should be more consistent, but AI is really difficult to predict exactly how it's going to occur. So of course, you know, keep an open dialogue with the community and with the pro players as we test this change.
All right, and one more point before we hop into the jungle. Just want to touch on mid lane really quick. The two new camps of the 2 small harpies that we added at the beginning of the season, these camps are going to be changed to have a single elder harpy instead of 2 smaller harpies.
Oh, that's harder to clear.
This is essentially a mid lane nerf. Mid laners are still getting really ahead in experience in most of our measurements. So instead of 2 small harpies, you're gonna have 1 large harpy. So it's gonna be worth a little bit less golden experience, and it's gonna be a little harder to kill.
Fair bit
and
harder.
You'll be able to split it, so it's more easy to be stolen. And then there's just going to be a lot of changes today across the jungle to the XP and gold rewards, as well to the tankiness. These, I would just say, be careful over reading into them in text. It can be really hard to kind of estimate and imagine in your mind how all of these numbers being shifted are going to play out. But when you get to the PTS and you get to this update launched, we are expecting to see more consistent performance from all the different roles, especially in the XP and gold gain area. So we want junglers to be more even with mid laners. We want the duo lane to be able to catch up to the rest of the team better. All of the changes you're seeing today in regards to experience and gold is the goal is to make sure that all of the roles feel equally impactful.
Awesome. All right, let's hop into the jungle. What's going on in the jungle with these new jungle camps?
So we can just go down the list of each of the jungle monsters. The big things to note is some camps are now aggressive, so they will actually attack you upon sight and when you enter their domain. So you can see here, these guys are looking at me, but they're just kind of staring at me. They might not want to fight me, so we'll see that kind of behavior later. But now these guys, upon being like tankier as well, will also, you see that warning there on the ground? They're attacking
Are we
me.
going in game? Oh yeah, okay, here we are.
Can't see anything.
There we go.
So you can see there, I have to dodge these things while I'm fighting. So red
So-
warning.
Okay,
sidestep.
nice.
So every jungle camp is being assigned either aggressive or defensive. Aggressive monsters will attack you as soon as you enter the area, so you cannot even path through their area without them at least moving towards you and trying to attack you. Some of them will still be staying defensive, which is the way they currently behave. They won't attack until you hit them first. In addition to that, every jungle camp is having a new ability added to it. This is the Centaur camp, and he has the Spear Thrust ability, which if you don't strafe it, you're going to take a lot more damage.
Correct. And you can see here, these guys are really tanky. I'm 51 minutes into this match. Don't use this as the benchmark for how tanky these camps are going to be.
Wow, 51 minutes.
Yeah, you can see that the setup time it took to get this map launched up for us to stream it. But yeah,
Right.
you can see here, this is the attack, that's the one on the ground, and each camp is going to have their own unique thing to kind of consider.
It's gonna be very interesting when
Right, so
invading
the
camps.
Manticores, Chimeras, Harpy, Gold Fury, Fire Giant, those are the aggressive monsters. So mostly the duo side of the map and the bosses. The
Ooh.
defensive
They walked at me.
monsters are the more wise and
Aggressive
civilized
Fire
monsters
Giant, that's
across the
scary.
map. So the Oracles, the Pyromancer, the Centaurs, and the Satyrs, so the solo side of the map, those monsters will not attack you unless you attack them first. One of the most important things here is this really just makes certain parts of the map more dangerous. You can't just walk through the Gold Fury pit
Yeah.
to gank duo anymore. The Gold Fury will see you and try to attack you.
Oh
If
my
you
god,
enter
the Fire Giant is so
Giant's
scary
area,
when
he
the
tries
Gold Fury has to
summon
walk
back
with the
Gold
Fire
Fury.
Giant.
I know a lot of people
Jeez.
use that area for a safe like recalling. I feel like that's an especially common place to do that pawn. Can't do that anymore. So we're making the whole map a little more tactical and just the way you fight around the map, as well as trying to add a lot more interesting interaction
he
to
broke.
the experience of jungling or just clearing your jungle camp from whatever lane you're playing.
For
And you can
sure.
see
So
there's a
I
lot
think-
of like. Oh, go ahead.
Go ahead, Fawn. I'm sorry.
As you can see there, like especially when you're trying to ward this area, you might actually like cause a fire, like a fire pool to spawn, and you actually have to play around that. So there's a lot of high-level consideration around these camps being more aggressive in defending their home territory.
Cool, for sure. So I think
I
we
thought
just
they
wanna
said
go
Pyro
down
is
the
not
list.
aggressive.
You want to start with the Alpha Harpy here and just talk about all the new abilities for all the new jungle camps?
But let me go fast. Gonna
Zoom,
room it.
zoom.
The first
There
here
we
is the
go.
Alpha Harpy camp. You can see it's fighting me, and then it does that kind of screech attack. Obviously, this is in dev. Once we get to PTS, we'll have like the full icon stuff there. You can see the temp icon there, but this debuff is going to actually be affecting my ability to deal damage to targets. It's going to reduce my attack speed. So if I'm going to fight this, I probably want someone to help me to take that attack speed buff.
God.
Or if I'm the hunter, I'm just going to have to deal with taking it more
It's
slowly.
gonna take even longer.
One of the most interesting things about these changes is that some of them will even affect the way you fight gods after, or
Mhm.
many of them will affect the way that you fight gods, or if you end
Yeah.
up being invaded or fighting another player.
That's what I'm
while
saying,
you're doing
invades
this,
seems
they're going
so
to affect you here. So
beneficial.
here, this 15% attack speed debuff, that slows down people that are fighting, and it's going to slow down your damage output. Also, every jungle camp is designed with a sort of gameplay challenge involved, something that you might often see in like MMOs and games, similar games. So really, this Harpy, one way you can mitigate this, right, is to duo it. You can have your Guardian take the attack speed debuff so that your Hunter can still output that max damage. And each of these camps has a little kind of trick to the trade as you learn and fight with these new mechanics.
For sure. All right, next up we got the Elder Harpy and the regular Harpy. So these Harpies don't have any sort of new abilities, but they do follow the aggressive behavior type. So if you walk into their area, they'll
Right.
go out to attack you.
Cool.
Yep. The Harpies are the baseline monster for the whole map, and even the aggressive type, especially pathing through the mid lane, getting that Harpy to come at you, has made me jump scare a few
I
times.
actually wanna
when
play
just trying
jungle
to gank
again.
People, or it could interact
Finally.
with Link or some other things. You really have to be aware of your surroundings now.
Yeah, I
It's
tried
gotta
to hide
fix
in a camp
Conquest now,
once, and I
ayo.
was like, oh no, the camp is just it's fighting me now. So it definitely
it's-
changes how you're gonna play.
Yeah.
For sure. All right,
So
next
then,
up we've got the Manticore, or the red buff, and he has got a
Mhm.
new ability called Berserk. And I believe we're gonna go in game here for all of these and show you guys.
Here I
oh,
actually
you're gonna
have to get.
yeah, because he's super tanky. This one triggers when he gets to low HP. A lot of the abilities will trigger as
Oh,
you're
there
fighting
was.
them, like just shortly after fighting them. But some of them have specific cases. This
Whoa.
one, when the Manticore gets to low HP, he goes berserk, starts doing that rapid fire tail stab attack,
Jeez.
which is going to make you take a lot more damage if you don't clear him quickly. And the kind of
Jeez.
intended dev challenge here is to save your burst damage, save maybe an ability.
That makes him hard
until
for
he's already
mages to
low health.
solo.
Yeah, so you can see his attack speed right now. It's hitting for about 31 on me, and then when I actually get him to that berserk range, he's
He doesn't-
attacking significantly faster, like probably 1.5 or 1.7, as well as like he is hitting harder as well.
Yeah, he does
Especially
more
early
damage as
game,
well.
This can absolutely destroy your health pool if you don't play around it.
Alright, junglers need to jungle because
For
mid lane
sure.
can't do that
Alright,
anymore.
next up on the list we've got the Chimera, or the purple buff, and his
Right.
new ability is Void Sludge.
This one's really interesting. We did a wide range of different types of abilities on these characters. We wanted to try a lot of different things. So you have things like the Centaur, the Manticore, which you kind of just dodge attacks. But then you have ones like the Void Sludge. So what this does is whoever gets first aggroed by the camp will be afflicted by the Chimera's Void Sludge. It's an unmissable ranged projectile. It'll shoot at you. What this does is apply a long duration debuff that decreases your protections by 20%, so it makes you, quite
Ew.
vulnerable. But it also has another new side effect, which it makes you nearly invisible to minion AI. So you will be able to take more damage from gods, but you will also be able to make like power plays in lanes without getting the minions to aggro you. So you can do
Oh
a really
my
cool,
God.
interesting rotation after you fight this camp and you go to duo lane, where one of your gods in your team can actually prevent themselves from being attacked by the minions.
Your jungler
Yep,
runs
there's a
through
lot
the
of
enemy
really
purple.
high-level things that you can do, especially in like level 1, like lane pressure. That's like a thing that you're kind of like dealing with minion AI, making sure they don't damage you too much. This
Oh,
really
God.
changes up, like you can actually be aggressive and know that they aren't going to hit you.
Dive
You
a
utilize this
wave.
buff effectively.
Like, dive the enemy
Cool. Alright, next up is
duo
the Centaur,
with a
or
wave.
yellow buff. We kind of touched on this at the beginning of the segment, but do you guys want to go into a little bit more detail on his new attack, the Spear Thrust?
Yeah, so this is a line warning area that is going to come from the center guy. He, if you get hit by it, it just does bonus damage. It's pretty significant, especially early on in the game, where if you just kind of eat all these, you're going to leave the yellow buff
Ooh.
with quite low health pool.
3 times the damage.
So you got to strafe and actually like kind of combat strafe to make sure you're not being hit by it. This might make it difficult to see people coming. It's just an extra thing to kind of worry about. So try and avoid it if you can.
That's the simple dodge it one. For this one that we knew junglers would be soloing by themselves often in the early game, we didn't want anything too fancy, but we did want something that made them have to think a little bit more, made them have to move a little bit more. So you will have to watch out for that attack, which will do a lot more damage if you get hit by it.
Cool. All right, and then last up for the buff holders, we've got the Satyr, or the blue buff, and we're right here.
Joke's on you, I've
what's going
fought the
on with
demon
this,
before.
Satyr? It looks like he's missing some friends.
Yeah, this one has had some bigger balance changes as well. So now it's only a single Satyr.
Oh, and he has more HP, so you can't hog
is,
him.
is worth the same amount of XP and gold as a normal
Oh,
trio
what?
camp. So this blue camp is still worth the same amount. His special ability is
Or
that he
not.
will summon spirit satyrs to help him.
No.
These have very low HP, but do a lot of damage. And you'll need to make sure you save an AoE attack or a cleave to clear these while you're fighting him, or you will end up wasting a lot of your basic attacks on them, or you'll end up taking a considerable amount of additional damage while fighting him.
That's not too bad.
You can see some of these abilities have cooldowns associated with them. So while I was fighting him the first time he spawned them, second time it was still on cooldown, and now the third time he's actually used it again. They are quite squishy. They don't give any actual additional reward, but if you don't have an AoE ability to really kind of get rid of them, they're going to ramp up some damage on you pretty quickly.
The cooldown is
I mean,
an
who
interesting
doesn't,
thing because
to be
even
honest.
players can use the cooldown as a way to circumvent the mechanic, and we're okay with that. But you're wasting time, spending time letting the camp reset, things like that. And the cooldown is important because some of these, when triggered multiple times, could have caused other problems, right? We didn't want this to have a whole army of spirit satyrs just running
God.
across the jungle here. So I believe it's this one and the purple are the ones with strictly enforced cooldowns.
Cool. All right,
I wonder
that
if his
wraps up
base
the
HP is the
buff camps.
same.
Let's start talking about some neutral objectives here. Pyromancer is up first, and the Pyromancer has a new ability called Infernal Ritual. What's going on with Pyromancer?
So the big thing to note is now the Pyromancer, and when we get to it, the Oracles they already were, are now CCable. And the whole point there is they have this long duration channel that if you don't interrupt and don't play around, it's going to actually pretty negatively affect your ability to clear them, or make it so that enemies are more easily able to actually jump on you and hurt you. So for Pyromancer here, you can see that big giant wind up into a actual aura effect that's on me right now. I have a debuff effect on me. And this one, I believe, is I take more damage, if I am remembering correctly. I'm taking damage, increased damage from all sources.
Yeah, it looks like
50%.
15%.
Oh, no, they don't hit it.
So yeah, if you're fighting Pyromancer and you don't really interrupt this effect, the enemy team can actually come out and pretty heavily swing a fight against you. So Pyromancer might not be as safe of an objective if you can't play around this mechanic, or you don't have access to it, or it burn a stun, and that gives an opportunity for the enemy team to come in. So there's definitely a lot more consideration with when you're fighting the Pyromancer now.
One of the main effects that you're going to see is happening from the Pyromancer and the Gold Fury is that if you're just trying to bait the objective, so you know it's a common strategy in high level play where you attack it and you just kind of stand here and let the other team approach, this is going to make that more risky.
Bad idea.
That play, because you're more likely to be afflicted by these additional abilities that these characters are now going to have.
Cool. All right, moving right along, we're going to do the Oracles next, and they have another ritual, but they have the guarding ritual. And I'll go ahead and read what
that doesn't sound good.
going on. It looks
Even
like
tankier.
shortly after the Oracles are attacked, they'll channel for 3 seconds, and if they successfully channel the ability, they cast the Guardian Ritual, which grants the Oracles 40% reduced damage.
Oh god, no. Even more.
So you can see there, I entered the channel, and so my first leap did like 110 damage versus the 220 that it did when they were actually fully vulnerable. So if you don't interrupt this, it can drastically slow down your ability to clear these this camp and get vision on the Gold Fury.
If your god doesn't have double like AoE CC, you're done.
We touched on it earlier. For the Fire Giant,
Thunder can stop.
Whenever you walk into the Fire Giant area, he is now going to spawn those molten pools.
Yep, so you can see here I aggroed the Fire Giant, he's not happy with me, and now there's the fire pool underneath me. So, easily avoidable, not something that's going to really interfere too much, but if I'm trying to bait Fire Giant, if I'm trying to like push people out and get position on here, I now have a little bit more to consider, and it creates some opportunity for enemies to also counter-engage.
Or you use it on purpose.
Scared me a few times, just in playtest, right? I'm just
to
walking
zone
through
them.
the jungle, I think I'm okay, and then boom, this Fire Giant appears under me. Like, it was really about making the jungle feel more alive. We have all of these scary, intimidating, mythical beasts everywhere, and they just kind of hang out and wait for gods to start beating up on them, right? And we just felt like that was a thematic miss. So we wanted to take a chance to add a lot more emotion to the map while also adding a whole lot of more strategic elements to the map.
Yeah, I've definitely been paying more attention to the jungle monsters and what they do, and like recognizing that they're part of this living map more so now than I have in other kind of situations, especially Fire Giant. He's like, get out of my area! Don't stand here. This isn't your team fight platform.
Exactly. One more.
All right, last
Gold
up
Furies.
for neutral objectives, we've got the Gold Fury, and it looks like there's going to be each new Fury. Well, not new Fury. Each Fury. There's currently 3. You know, regular, Oni, and then Primal. They're each going to have a unique ability.
Oh god.
What's going on with the base Fury ability?
Yeah, so you can see there, that's the kind of channel that all the Gold Furies are going to do, and they're also an aggressive camp as well, so they'll chase after you. But I believe the Gold Furies one is, I'm now worth more gold if I get killed.
Right. So all 3 Furies, their special ability is a channeling single target spell that stacks. So the Gold Fury will stack the Burden of Riches debuff on you, which will stack up to 6 times and slow your movement as well as make you worth more gold to enemy gods if killed. Which is pretty interesting. You know, it's a not that long duration of a debuff, so it's pretty specific interaction. But that's just an element of theming we really liked. So the Gold Fury
the flavor
makes
cool.
you worth. Yeah, the flavor is top notch. So the Gold Fury actually makes you worth more gold. The Oni Fury will apply the Burden of War, which will increase damage taken from all sources, similarly to the Pyromancer. And
Okay, that's a lot worse.
will do the Burden of Dread, which will reduce the damage dealt. So because of these changes, like Burden of War makes you take more damage from all sources. You might not want your Guardian tanking that. You might want to shift it up. you know, oftentimes you still will. The primal,
Who else should take more damage then?
dealt.
Solo
You definitely
maybe.
don't want like your assassin who you know sometimes start these camps on their own just because they have high lifesteal or something like that. You won't want them getting that stacked because they'll be losing that debuff.
What
You
assassin
can
has
also
high
interrupt these
lifesteal on a
by,
regular basis? What?
wisely resetting the camp and transferring aggro between characters too, which I expect a lot of the pro players will master relatively quickly. But the thing is that this provides a lot of additional threat to just standing around with this camp aggro to you, which is a pretty common thing to do. We want to make sure that that has a reasonable amount of risk and reward involved in that strategy.
All I'm hearing is Fenrir jungle.
So along with all of these abilities, every single
He works
jungle
against
camp,
everything in the jungle
almost
now.
all of them has a significant amount of balance notes, which we didn't go through and read all the numbers here because it'd be a little wordy for us to read out. But a lot of the camps have been made a little harder to clear, but they've also been made worth more experience. So we're gonna see junglers making their rotations, so as far as where in the jungle they're reaching at what timestamp, that's going to slow down, but their level and experience is going to actually increase. And this also has a big effect on the rest of the map. So as I kind of mentioned at the beginning, we want to see a lot of playtesting, a lot of iteration, and a lot of feedback going forward to see how this feels. But it does a good job in our testing of making all of the classes and the different roles be more equivalent in experience game.
For sure. That wraps it up for all of the Conquest changes. Lots of exciting stuff. I'm super excited.
I want to
see
see the
what players
stats as
come
well,
up
but
with when interacting
it's
with all these
really
jungle
interesting.
camps. But let's go ahead and hop into items. And
I
to
think
kick it off,
junglers are
we've
going to be in the
got
jungle a lot
pretty
more.
big shift to physical penetration.
Hopefully
What's
it's
going on
rewarding
with this?
enough.
So similar to our changes for magical penetration at the
Oh,
start of
no
Season
way.
7, we were looking and seeing that in a lot of cases people could kind of build one item and suddenly negate a lot of tankiness in the game.
Oh.
And so we wanted to separate percent pen, make it a stat that people are more regularly and consciously building into their
Let's
builds.
go.
And so like magical, where we created a few new percent pen options as well as some 20% options, physicals are also getting that change with a few tweaks. Unlike magical, items like Spear the Magus and Obsidian Shard, they have different considerations and different power level. So we've kind of adjusted all our items according to what physical specifically needs, as well as physicals have more kind of classes under their umbrella. So you have the hunters, you have the assassins, you have the bruisers, and you have the tanks, where mages are mostly ability focused, and we have in-hander. So there's a few more percent pen items. Some are specifically reserved for one type of class. Others are more, we're kind of expecting only certain classes to really lean towards them.
For sure. So physical percent penetration is now going to have a 40% cap, but you can get physical percent pen from a variety of items, and we're going to go right into it and start with Titan's Bane. We're going to be increasing the cost here on Titan's Bane, increasing the physical power, adding 20% pen, but there's a new passive. Your first ability cast gains 20% physical penetration, and that has a 10-second cooldown on the item.
Okay, so it's the Obsidian Shard
Similar
version.
shift as you saw with Obsidian Shard, and this is especially going to be a much more popular item on ability-based characters now. So
Yeah, this is
as
better
Tom's
than the
mentioning, we
mage
had to
one
do a
because
little bit of different strategies in applying this to
assassins
physical
use this
because there's
differently.
a lot of different types of
They have
gods.
like a lot of hard engage
and,
abilities.
You know, you used to see this as a one purchase for
Hunbat's
shredding
ult.
on hunters. Probably
Blink
not going
ult.
to see that as much anymore.
It's massive.
Maybe still on some of them or some of the ability-based ones, but probably not as much anymore.
Well,
And one other
Thor ult.
important thing to note about physical pen that's a little bit different of consideration as well, just to kind of
It's huge.
give an example, percent pen on towers, right? That's something that used to exist in Smite. When we removed it, hunters saw their damage to towers decrease. With percent coming back as a stat in this way, you actually are going to see hunters and assassins do more damage to towers again.
Oh.
So again, when we talk about like the different considerations magical versus physical have,
Yes.
this is like an example of that.
Oh my god, yes. That's gonna change
Point
so
for
much.
sure. All right. Next up, we're going to talk about the execution.
Split push
We're going to
returns.
be decreasing the cost on the item, increasing the power, but we're decreasing the passive shred from 12% per stack to 7% per stack.
Hunters
Oh.
has a lot of Yeah, we went back and forth on this one for some time.
Wow, that's a
Executioners
huge
is
nerf.
kind of analogous to the Spear of the Magus for mages, where it was this kind of defining item, but it was defining in a different way where most hunters could make use of this item really well. It wasn't really defining which hunters were good over other hunters, and so rather than try and change it too much, we just wanted to kind of go with our messaging of the percent pen should be something that you build over the course of the game. Buying this one item kind of negates tanks off the gate. So we're reducing the cost and making this easier to build and giving it some more raw power. just so that the curve is a bit better early on when you're fighting other squishy characters in lane or fighting minions. And then you can let the percent pen help with other percent pen items later on into the game.
There are
This
so
balance
many
point with Volunteer
ADCs
is
that I'm
something
at
we
right
have to,
now.
like, really go back and forth on. But given all the other changes that we're about to go into Hunters, we feel this is a good spot for it.
It's not worth picking up though.
All right, Hunter item up next. Atalanta's Bow. We're going to be adding 20% pin to the item.
What?
Removing the 10% movement speed. And this item is going to have
What?
a new passive, which is a fun one. Whenever you get a killer assist on an enemy god, you gain Atalanta's agility, increasing your attack speed and decreasing your movement penalty for basic attacking.
This is
Jeez.
half Fatalis.
This is
Or
core
like
now.
Less than that, because it's you have to get a killer assist on an enemy god first, and then you get a reduced Fatalis-like effect. And we can balance that 50%. We can adjust that as needed. But it feels really good to be moving quickly in all directions. This one's specifically designed as kind of a new 20% pen option for hunters, since we pretty much took away Titan's Bane from them, except for some rare cases. Atalanta's Bow is your new option here, with 20% pen on it and still already pretty good attack speed and power stats from before that were unchanged. It's losing the movement speed, but it's gaining so much more.
Well, I guess hunters are okay after all.
20% penetration is a pretty huge swing here.
Yeah.
And this passive is really strong, really lets you feel powerful and lets you follow up on kills really well.
Yep.
Cool. All right, next up we've got Rage. Quick nerf to Rage here, increasing the cost by 100 gold. From 2,300 to 2,400.
Good.
Rage is one of those items that we've seen people really pick up even when they're not going crit builds. So we feel it's a bit too effective for what it's doing.
Yes.
But given the amount that we're about to shake up Hunters, obviously the executioner change we just talked about in physical pen shift, we wanted to keep that somewhat relevant to where it currently is and let players play around it and do some balancing on it afterwards versus doing a large change to Rage right out the gate. We do recognize that it's a pretty strong item as a whole, and so we're giving it some cost increase to kind of note that.
All right, next up on the list, Silver Branch Bow. We're going to be adding 10% physical penetration, removing the 10 flat pen, but we're increasing the physical power that you gain from the passive per stack.
I swear this item is going to be good one of these days. This overcap is just a really cool theory crafter type of passive. People really like it. There's a lot of places where you can kind of accidentally build yourself into too much attack speed on certain hunters, especially ones with really strong stims. So I think this item passive is just a great necessity for the game. Now that it's a percent pen option, you can also slot it into builds to round out the amount of tank shred you need, and increasing the amount of power you gain from that passive, just going to make it more powerful in those high attack speed, high penetration builds. So
Could
really
be
excited about this
interesting.
change too.
A Polo Artemis, but the problem is still like crit is
Let's
usually
talk about
better.
the shurikens. Let's kick it off with 8-pointed shuriken, lower on the tier. We're just reducing the attack speed there by 3% from 10 to 7, but we've got a new shuriken coming onto the battleground, Shadow Steel Shuriken, and this is a brand new item. It's 2,500 gold. It's got 20 physical power, 10% attack speed, 20% crit chance, and a passive. Enemies hit by your critical strikes have 40% reduced healing and regeneration for 8 seconds.
Yes, we saw
That's old Poison
Hunters
Star, huh?
especially kind of struggle to really build anti-heal options against teams with high healing.
Toxic
Blade kind
Blade
of existed for high attack speed options. Brawlers you might be able to justify on some of the ability characters, but there wasn't one that really felt hunter-oriented, and so the Shadow Steel Shuriken really fits that slot. Obviously, you're taking a pretty big hit on your offensive stats. 20 power and 10% attack speed isn't much to really go with a crit build, but if you are building that, you have the other synergy items, this can be a pretty good slot for any crit build.
Interesting.
All right, next up, talking about crit builds, Poison Star. We're going to be decreasing the attack speed on the item by 5% and increasing the physical power from 30 to 35.
As we were creating the new shuriken, and as we're making some pretty big changes to Wind Demon, as you'll see next, we wanted each shuriken to have a specific stat that it excelled at, right, Pon?
Right.
So the Poison Star is now the high power shuriken, whereas the Shadow Steel is the crit chance, and Wind Demon is going to be attack speed and penetration. As you see here, spoiler alert, we're about to give Wind Demon penetration, which I know is really scary, but wait until you see it. Wait until you see it.
All right, let's go ahead and talk about Wind Demon here. We're going to be decreasing the crit chance from 20% to 15, decreasing the power from 30 to 25, and the passive is now going to provide 10% physical penetration in addition to attack speed.
But you have to crit first? It doesn't
Yeah,
sound
so
like a
Wind
good
Demon
deal.
getting 10% pen is something that we wanted to find a good place for it to go into crit builds to get a little bit percent pen option. And we felt Wind Demon was the best choice for that. One, because we could put it on the passive, which delays the pen a little bit to where you need to actually be building crit to get it, as well as when we were adjusting our stats, this item losing out on power and critical strike chance means that you really do need to build more into that critical strike path. Before at 20%, you could almost justify not really building any other crit
Sorry,
items
just gonna
with
follow
it,
on Twitch.
but now at 15%,
Not
we've seen what that
on.
does to crit items where they have lower chances. You really need to build that supplemental item, and so that we're hoping that these stats were shifted enough to really make this a good home
I don't
for the
know
percent pen,
if this is good enough.
because we feel like it's going to be healthier than having just 10% all the time.
I have to go on that in detail in the
All right,
patch
let's
notes
move right along and
review
talk about
later.
Soul Eater next. We're going to be decreasing the cost on the item, decreasing the power, removing the mana, but we're adding 10% physical pen, and it's going to provide 5% ability lifesteal on the base version. And then on the evolved version, we're decreasing the power, removing the mana, adding 10% physical pen, and increasing the physical ability lifesteal from 15% to 20%.
So this is becoming another percent pen option, which required some pretty big shifts
This
to the
is,
item. It had a ridiculously high amounts of power
very
before
good
to make it more attractive. Really kind of excessive how much power it had. Surprising that the item was not more popular, even though it had that much physical power on it.
I agree.
So as that power is being adjusted, the cost came down to be appropriate as well. Also, we just like the passive. People really enjoy this passive, and the fact that you don't really get to experience it at all until it's evolved is maybe a little too punishing. So instead, we are letting players experience some of that lifesteal healing through abilities right upon purchase, and then it's going to get even stronger once the item evolves.
Yep.
All right, moving right along, we've got Heartseeker up next. We're going to be decreasing the cost here. We're going to be removing the 10% flat pen and adding 10% physical pen. I'm sorry.
Yep.
Well, it's
So
already
the
a
big
late game
thing
item
here
anyways.
is,
So that's
we needed
a
a
buff,
another percent
probably.
option for the more high power ability assassins. And Heartseeker felt like a great place because it already kind of targeted being a tank buster. And so the flat pen made it too effective kind of against everyone, especially like any squishy target that you were going to go for with that power and flat pen.
That plus
So
Titan's
percent
Bane,
pen better
ow.
targets what this item's goal really is, which is your answer as an assassin to the frontline tank that's really stopping you from getting to the back line.
All right, next up, Fail Not. We're going to be just adding 10% physical pen to the item.
There you go. A lot of people like this item, but they
That's
felt like it was just
better than
lacking
Wind Demon
something.
then.
I think this is a pretty nice something to add to it.
Like,
I
not
think
so
it fits well
conditional.
with what this item wants to do, and will help round out a lot of different builds, and hopefully just make it a more attractive one of the Arthurian items.
Aaron is gonna run
Right,
Atalantis
next
anyways.
up, I believe this is our last one up for a person talking about physical percent pen. We've got Masamune. This item has been removed from the game, but you guys will be able to find something similar on a new item that's being added to the hammer tree that we'll talk about a little bit later.
No.
But an item called Serrated Edge is going to be taking Masamune's place.
Wait, I
And
know
this
that
is
name.
a brand new item. It's 2,400 gold, has 40 physical power, 10% lifesteal, 10% movement speed, 20 physical pen, and a passive. If all of your non-ultimate abilities are on cooldown, you gain 40 basic attack power and 10% lifesteal.
Whoa.
Yeah, this one's a really interesting one, and I'm curious to see what characters really end up making use of this kind of
Whoa.
passive. The goal here is to give players who use all their abilities to kind of get in and then finish off targets with basic attacks to be further rewarded for that kind of play style, choosing to risk maybe their moon ability to get in rather than escape. And it's obviously a 20% pen option, so
Trying to think who's the
this is going to
best
be
fit.
attractive for quite a number of characters. But
Fenrir.
who can really make use of that passive is the question.
Yeah,
Wait, is it 2 on 2
assassin
immediately?
20% pen option. So we have
Yep.
for the
Actually, not sure.
as we kind of looked at all of the penetration across the board, most of the items we talked about today have 20% or 10%, and you'll be able to build those in some
Mercury.
combination to reach that 40%.
Mercury.
That's what we think will drive a lot of new build decisions and a lot of new build diversity going forward.
Definitely
This
Mercury.
one happens to be for melee only, so this will be available to assassins, but you'll also have Titan's Bane and Atalanta's Bow.
Pop the
that
1,
will
dash
be
in, UC2.
applicable to more gods.
But again, I don't know if it's when the
All right,
abilities
so
go on
that wraps it
cooldown.
up for the physical penetration
During or
shift.
after
We're gonna
the
talk
channel.
about warrior
I like the
items
buff.
next. And we're going to start with Glad Shield. Glad Shield is going to be a T3 item in the mid-season update. It's going to be 2,500 gold, 25 power, a lot of other stats that we'll have on the screen
Wow.
in a second. But the big thing is the passive. We're changing that up significantly. Any enemy god who is under 50% health takes bonus damage from your abilities equal to 15 plus 2 per level of your physical power.
So really
What?
we're saying here is there's no more Glad Shield and Berserker Shield. Those tier 2 sustain items in the solo lane are gone. We felt that those were really hamstringing the meta or pushing it in a very specific direction for
That's fair,
a
honestly.
long time. Now, we're going to see a very different solo lane meta develop without these, whether we might see some certain gods rise to the top of the pack because of these changes, and we'll nerf those gods accordingly. But the idea here is that we're going to make the lane more aggressive in general. We're going to prevent these characters from just over-sustaining against each other like crazy. People are maybe going to be concerned about gods that already have built into sustain, but those gods were buying Gladiator Shield and Berserker Shield anyway, and their sustain was just completely through the roof now. So no matter what happens, we have reduced the amount of sustain in the total solo lane. Likely, our goal here is to see more kills, right? More solo kills, make solo laners feel like they can have a bigger impact on their team as a whole by actually winning their lane matchup, as opposed to just out-sustaining each other for 15 to 20 minutes, then joining a team fight. That's really the main goal behind these two changes. So both Gladiator Shield and Berserker Shield are going to be more expensive. They're going to be tier 3s, and they're going to have completely new passives that don't heal the owner of the item.
Self-healing solos are going to be so good, though.
Sure. Let's go ahead and talk about Berserker Shield and move right along. Like you said, it's going to be a T3 item, and the new passive on Berserker Shield is going to be, if you drop below 40% HP, you become Berserk, and Berserk provides 20 physical power, 20% attack speed, and lasts 5 seconds, refreshes if you're healed or redamaged.
Cool.
Yeah, so much more aggressive than the kind of Gladiator Shield, which gives you some defensive stats and then kind of encourages you to use your abilities on lower health targets. This one encourages you to dive in, get low, and then utilize that low health additional boost to really get kills. Warriors like Erlang Shen, maybe Bologna can make use of this. Some assassins who want to be a bit more aggressive and can kind of play with their health pool a little bit more might also be able to utilize this really well. Which is a big change to warrior itemization. Glad Shield and Berserker Shield being very different is going to have a kind of a ripple effect on pretty much everything else.
Yeah, a lot of big changes going to come from that.
Yeah, last up for warrior items, we got a new item that we touched on earlier. It's called the Sledge. It's going to be in the hammer tree, and the passive on this is going to be for each enemy within 55 units of you, you're going to gain 10%, or not 10%, 10 magical and 10 physical protections, stacking up to 3 times.
It's essentially, this is Masamune redesigned as a hammer. With some stat changes, and now this will be available to all classes instead of just melee, like it was in the Katana tree. Treating this mostly as a warrior item, but we could certainly see it picked up on assassins from time to time, although they weren't really picking up Masamune in its current state that often, so I'm not sure.
No, this is better than Masamune in current state, isn't it?
This was a really popular
health is way better.
People just like this idea of I get tankier when I'm in the heat of battle.
Let me check that.
So it was really
pretty
popular.
Sure that's actually pretty huge.
In fact, we didn't want to cut from the game, but we needed to make room for that 20% penetration option in a assassin.
I think that's
tree,
a lot
because we did not want hunters buying that. So we essentially moved and renamed and rethemed, and we were trying to think of a new type of hammer, and we came up with like a sledgehammer.
It was more expensive.
We're like, it's just.
It had half the health.
Here it comes.
It only loses 10 power, and it loses the movement speed.
The passive works off only 3 gods instead of 5, so skirmish oriented as well.
Right, that's a really good point to note, that you don't have to have such high variance on the item. Now you can actually reach that max efficiency much more often, and in other game modes. Shoutouts to my Joust friends.
Yep.
There you go. All right, let's move on and talk
about
other items getting changed in mid-season. Let's start with Assassin's Blessing. We're going to be increasing the health on the item. It's now going to provide 7 physical and magical power, increasing the healing from jungle monsters when you kill them, but we're decreasing the bonus damage done to jungle monsters.
Nice.
Yeah, so this kind of goes
it has
along
power
with
now,
the
so that's
goal
fair.
of the jungle being a more difficult but rewarding objective to fight.
Thank you.
We've tuned the numbers so they feel good to fight against.
Why did this take so long?
That 40% junglers still kind of just blew through everything and killed everything, and it made it difficult to increase their reward or to really balance them accordingly. And so we've decreased the amount of bonus damage they get. They still are the premier jungle slayers. They're the ones that farm the jungle. And just to make up for the fact that they're going to be a little bit slower at killing things, they're going to gain some bonus sustain so they can survive, as well as the item itself. We've seen a lot of people complain that it just doesn't feel good.
I think I'm gonna
enough
cry,
starting
guys. It's finally happening.
outside of being able to kill jungle camps. So it's getting a boost of health that you can use maybe when you're trying to gank, and additional power that's going to make you effective against all targets.
I waited 1.5 years for this.
Next up.
1.5 years. I waited for a jungle.
So a lot of times,
Significant jungle buff.
we've heard about
It's
Assassin's Blessing needing to have a little bit more wider application, as Pon touched on, the shift down, and just want people to understand that you're going to be also experiencing this on rebalanced jungle camps, with different tankiness stats too. So things are going to feel a little different, and we just want to encourage experimentation. Try out a lot of different junglers, see which ones really feel like they work and which ones don't, and we'll be excited to watch and try out those changes ourselves.
For sure. All right, next up we got Warlock Staff. We're going to be increasing the base power from 65 to 85, but decreasing the base power per stack that the item grants.
Wait, what?
So even though this looks like a shift, it's actually a buff because it's buffing it at both stages of its life cycle, just not buffing it as much late game.
Wow,
this was
a
an
lot
item we
actually.
redesigned at Season 7, and we preemptively nerfed before launch because in our internal testing, it was extremely powerful. However, we launched it a little underwhelming, and then all players weren't there for internal testing, so they never saw that powerful Warlock Staff build that we were running. So we're wanting to make sure that we make this item actually a viable option for mages, and we think that the healthier way to do that is through more power. I think it's good
like
for us
that.
to have a power
Warlock's are so
health
dead.
balanced item. Putting too much tankiness on that item is gonna cause problems for sure. So we focused on this specific update on giving it more power.
Little Baba Yaga buff.
All right, moving right along. Book of Thoth going to be seeing a decrease in cost.
Yeah, we've seen a lot of builds kind of divert from doing these more stacking items, more long-term focused investment. Part of that's just because they were difficult to really build into as they should be, but they're a bit too difficult for that. So Book of Thoth, getting a cost reduction, making it easier to start that build path and get some of its power.
Ooh, that might come back then.
DPS kind of calculations around how it compares to other items, and it just didn't. The difficulty for building it didn't really justify the
Baba Yaga sitting here
making it easier to build will help that.
All right, next up we've got Tyrannical Plate Helm, a new item that we saw this year. We're going to be increasing the magical power here, and then also increasing the bonus minion health that it grants.
Oh.
This is essentially a revert. People saw this item at Season 7. I think they just got a little bit of sticker shock, and we listened to the feedback.
And solos changed too.
When it launched, pretty much no one bought it.
This is gonna be big.
So we're buffing it back in a few ways to hopefully bring it back to being a viable option. Maybe opening up the solo lane to more guardians.
Yeah, that's what's gonna happen.
Someday
solo again.
See this item really tested.
Someday
we might have over nerfed it.
Everything.
Season 7.
All right, next up is a fun one, Mail of Renewal. We're going to be decreasing the time it takes to heal for 15% and regain 15% mana from 5 seconds to 3 seconds.
Yeah, with some sustain options being removed from kind of Warrior Bucket, some of the other sustain options that exist could be a bit more effective. Mail Renewal takes a long time to really get the health going after you secure an objective or win a team fight, just making it easier and also making it less prone to being overwritten, because if you only get one tick of it and then you get another kill or another objective, it would kind of eat the rest of it. Much more of it is going to be effectively going to you.
Right.
All right, got another sustain option up next. Stone of Gaia. We're going to be increasing the healing per second on this item.
Whoa.
Yeah,
what?
Stone of Gaia, although we haven't seen it much in the meta, it is a pretty consistently popular item in our casual player circles.
Guys, it's been played in Pro League quite a few times. What are you talking about?
At slightly lower skill levels of Conquest.
Holy.
That extra free sustain just feels really good.
Holy.
I think most people would agree that it's been feeling underpowered for quite a while. So we're just buffing that with sustain. And Isaiah, you said it really well. As we're shifting some of the sustain options around here, we're not necessarily eliminating it all from the game entirely, but we are making it focus towards a little bit more mid-game to late game when you buy it. It's going to be harder to rush, and focusing a little bit more on specifically tankier or aggressive items being separated as opposed to items like
5% HP in 10 seconds instead of 3%.
Rounded out stats of all attack, protection, counter, CDR, and healing all in one item. That was just too much in one place.
For sure. All right, here is a spicy one for you guys.
This one was This one was spicy already.
We're removing the current passive, and it's going to have a new passive. Every 15 seconds, the item is going to generate a block stack for the owner.
Oh,
Yeah, reflect damage is one of those things that, like, when it's strong, it
What?
feels bad to play against. When it's not
No.
strong, it feels bad to play as. It's a counter option that
15
kind of
seconds
feels
is
weird to play
nothing.
around. In short bursts, in
With
control settings
Mondstack
like with
max.
relics and with god abilities, it's more fair. But this kind of
Ugh.
always-on effect feels very difficult and punching to play around. We're just going to move its effect to something that does a similar goal of mitigating offensive, especially range damage or basic attack damage, and making it a more consistent, reliable proc that is potentially stronger at actually stopping damage from happening to you, but the hunter isn't going to also eat a lot of its health pool trying to actually do damage.
I'm really interested to see what the hunter mains out there
I don't
say
like this
about
change.
this item, because reflect damage was a really controversial discussion, and a lot of times people were really frustrated by it. But block stacks are really powerful too. And obviously we tried to design this item to fit kind of a similar anti-hunter role, but to do it in a less frustrating way.
How are tanks
so
gonna
I'm
counter
interested to see
lifesteal
what the
now?
players think about
Tanks
it, how this
specifically,
feels to play
like
against. And I would also
reasonably.
note that this
It's not gonna happen.
passive has the cooldown time before it generates a block stack is a really strong balance point, right? Right now it's a relatively short time because we expect you most of the time to just clear the block stack and then continue fighting. But we could increase that time as a pretty easy way to balance this item going forward.
I don't know. It doesn't seem.
All right, next up on the list, we've got Ring of Hecate, and this item is going to be seeing a little bit of a rework here.
Could be
It's
funny
gonna
with
have a new
upgrade shell though.
passive.
Block 3
Each
shots.
successful basic attack is going to apply a hex to enemies and empower you. Enemies are going to be receiving 5% decreased power per stack, and you receive 5% increased power and healing gained.
Wait, what?
So Ring of Hecate, we tried and failed, I'd say, to rework a ring item on season 7, which is okay, I think our goals at that time made sense, but we really kind of found that we can't outcompete Bancroft's Talon without deleting that item from the game or heavily reworking it, and that is a really popular item. So we're pivoting on Ring of Hecate, making it more of a late game focus and making it more of a boxing focus. So really what this is kind of reminiscent of Ichabal, but for mage ADCs. So you can build into this in a later game, and you can use this when you're kind of in that stage where most of the team has left you alone, and that's
The healing gain is actually very interesting.
Hunter, as a way to get a really strong power swing and sustain swing. Interesting to say as well, this increased healing. It's not like what is it, Rod of Asclepius and Caduceus Shield, which kind of specifically affect your healing. This one can affect heals that apply to you on many different ways. Actually, I'm a little mixed up. I'm sorry, Palman.
What?
That's good. It works like that. The goal here is really get that kind of like shifty power exchange, make it more hex-like, fit with the theme of Ring of Hecate, and also keep it focused on like the lifesteal sustain. So you're improving that while you're also decreasing your opponent's ability to really fight against you.
Sorry, I got tripped up a little bit there. What I was saying is that this does work almost more like a self buff, like Asclepius and Caduceus.
Yeah, that makes sense.
This is not just increasing your life steal. This is going to increase any healing done to you. So if you are even playing with a healer, this is going to make you heal 4 more. Not something that.
I think you're getting funnels right now.
Passive.
Right, things like that. Yeah, so it has some pretty interesting interactions.
Cool. All right, next up on the list, we've got Divine Ruin. We're going to be increasing the power for the item, but we're decreasing the pen.
Yes, and this also might be paired well with Spear of Desolation, which is also nice.
I would talk about them together, Pon, yeah.
Yeah, let's go ahead and do it. Spear of Desolation, we're decreasing the pin on that as well. Both of them from 15 down to 10.
Oh, I was going to make a video about that.
We saw the kind of rise of the double pen mage build where they're just rushing this and getting a lot of effectiveness.
I might still make
these
it.
Pen options should be more kind of dispersed throughout and be these more situational choices, but they were just being too effective.
Because I want to talk about the change as well.
A lot of power in addition to utility and cooldown reduction, so we felt like it could just kind of use the nerf in general. But Divine Ruin, which is this more focused anti-heal option, we wanted to make sure that it still feels really good to buy. Reducing the pen was probably too much of a hit on its own, so we've also given it some power. And it's also paired with the next upcoming one, which is another pen option that is probably going to be on a lot of people's radars. So the idea of stacking 3 pen options is also something that we had to consider.
Let's get into it. Spear of the Magus seeing a rework here. It's going to have a new passive. Any god that you damage becomes marked and debuffed to take 7.5% increased damage from all sources for 10 seconds.
So, Spear of the Magus' recent passive also was one of our less successful changes from Season 7, so we were willing and we were happy to adjust this and pivot it in the new meta.
No.
One main thing
What?
to note is that just how we've still decreased mage's access to flat pen across the board. We now have 10, 10, 10 across 3 items, when previously Spear of the Magus alone was applying like what 50 flat pen or something crazy like that.
Yeah.
So we have taken that down a notch too.
I'm
So
concerned.
on to Spear of Magus's new passive. We were trying to find an interesting damage amplification passive, which actually is harder to do than it sounds. So we already have things like Soul Reaver and Telkine's Ring, which are kind of just straight bonus damage. Those are fun effects, but I do not think the game needs more of those. I think one each is kind of the right way to go about it. We started talking a lot about Shaman's Ring and how much people really enjoyed that item and how much fun it was. But that item was really confusing because essentially the way we balance that item is instead of just giving you the appropriate amount of stats and giving it a cool damage amp passive, it was just balanced so that the bonus damage plus the stats was just about the same as the damage you'd buy from another pen or power item, right?
Yeah, it didn't really change much.
It didn't really affect your build as much as people felt like it did, but they did like the theming and the visuals. So this new Spear of the Magus is using a lot of the same theming and visuals, except it has a really interesting specific difference, was that it increases damage from all sources. So you can actually use your abilities as a mage to help your entire team do more damage to a target, which Shaman's Ring didn't do. And that's what lets you get a unique damage amplification feel here on the Spear of Magus. That's not just, okay, what's a new way that we can coat a paint on more damage, right? This
Tanks wish they had
has
that.
a team fight
Oh, they just build it.
application effect. And it's also important to notice that gods can only have one of these, and it has an internal cooldown, so you can only apply it to one god at a time. So if you hit a big AoE, one of those gods will get the debuff, and your item will go on cooldown until, so they're synced up, right? So you only have one person marked at one time. You could, however, buy multiple Spear Maguses across multiple gods on your team and apply this to multiple enemies.
Yep.
For sure. All right, guys, we're getting towards the end of items here. Warrior Tabby up next. It's now going to provide 100 mana.
Yep, this was just Warrior Tabby specifically.
Nice.
Was in a weird spot for boots where it's like 40 power is really good, but we've done a lot to other
Nice
boots to
for
make them a bit more interesting. And this one was
junglers
focused
as
on
well.
abilities, but didn't really help you with ability usage. So now you get a little bit of extra mana to play around with that bonus power that you're buying.
Cool. All right, let's talk about relics now. Teleport up first. Players will now be able to use the teleport relic to teleport to phoenixes.
Shoutouts to the Olympians on this one. Didn't really see any reason not to let people do this. I assume this was a design decision made ages ago that we just hadn't revisited. So it was a pretty relatively quick discussion. We're like, sure, more control, more flexibility over the item. Don't see any problems with it.
All right, next up, Cursed Ankh. This item is getting a change. When it's applied, it's now going to reduce active shields by 50%.
Yeah, shields have become a much more integral part to Smite.
Nice.
You see them more used because they're a version of healing that isn't permanent.
Nice.
But there wasn't really any great counterplay option. We added a bit to Yamoja with her two.
That's gonna be
damage
hard for
to
Yamoja.
shields. Now we're going to let you interact with that more effectively. And Cursed Ankh was one of those items that we actually looked at the kind of stats for it. And even when it was being built in situations where it should be good, it wasn't seeing as much success. So a little bit of extra flair, a little bit of extra use case feels appropriate here. And
Pop
it's also important
Odin's
to note this is
damage.
when applied. So you're not reducing all shielding for the entire duration. It's only if they have a shield applied to them when you activate this, it takes 50% away from that.
Yeah, it's almost like an AoE hit effect.
Right.
Somebody make a montage of
And
trolling
this is tied
Odin
in
with
closely
this.
to the next relic change.
Yep,
Here we go.
this one's really
Sundering
spicy.
Spear. Sundering Spear will now destroy enemy shields when applied.
Yep.
Yep.
So another
Oh no,
anti-shield
troll Odin with that one.
Stronger with single target. So this will destroy any amount of shield blue health that the opponent has at the time you hit them with Sundering Spear.
Ouch.
Yeah, Sundering Spear is going to be really interesting.
Ouch.
There's some shield characters that are going to be a little bit afraid of this, but if you're burning a
Yes.
relic slot and a major cooldown to deal with another character's strong ability, that seems relatively fair.
Yeah, probably still going to be more relevant in modes like Joust and Duel and stuff like that. But
Yep.
still, we wanted to make sure this
Nemesis?
mechanic had a proper counter.
What
and we
happens to
wanted to make
Nemesis?
sure these relics had a little bit more extra oomph.
Does she
to
get
them, 'cause they're
anything?
Not super popular right now.
Cool.
That's
All
even
that wraps
worse.
it up for
Oh my
items and
God.
relics. It's time to talk about gods, guys. And before we get into it, just wanted to kind of preface our god section here. We've got one rework coming in mid-season. It's going to be for Ratatoskr. The Loki rework is still in development. We just need a little bit more time
Oh,
to
okay.
clean things up for you
Explains
guys.
a lot.
But we didn't forget about it. It's still coming. We're still working on it. But Ratatoskr is going to be receiving a rework in mid-season update. Not quite Loki.
I hope they change the price on the
Yeah,
Acorns,
thanks, Isaiah.
because
I don't
in
wanna
between
get
they were
into too
really
much
low.
detail about Loki, but
Really low.
obviously that
Way
rework
too
we
low.
find is going to be very difficult to execute and to launch, and it's got a lot of attention being paid to it. So we want to make sure it gets the proper time, not just from the design team, but from the art team and the tech team as we're approaching Loki. And just this mid-season was huge. You know, we have some of the most insane skins we've ever made in the history of Smite in this update. We have a lot of crazy stuff from the art team and the tech team across the board. So Loki is going to be delayed a couple patches, and Ratatoskr, who we feel like we had a really clear path forward with, is going to be our feature rework for this update.
All right.
Because I know people want those Acorns back.
I know. Let's talk about the Acorn of Yggdrasil. And I'm not going to read all of this. Do you guys just want to talk about what we did to Acorn and how we're moving forward?
So one important thing to know about this rework kind of out the front is Dart's unchanged. Flurry is unchanged. Acorn Blast has a slight balance adjustment, and you'll see it, as well as the ult is unchanged. So players who like the current flow of Ratatoskr's kit, it's there, it's fully intact, and all we're doing is adding functionality based off the old Acorn system.
Oh my god, it is
you
the
buy an
same
Acorn and your
price.
abilities change, or you get different effects when you use
No.
your abilities. So if you like current Ratatoskr, it's all still there, and now you get the choice of what you want to really augment on it. So you make that choice with the Acorn of Yggdrasil. It now has two different kind of branching trees.
The tier 2s are going to be so strong
The nettle side.
early in the game.
One is more focused on tankiness and health, and the other one's more focused on more offensive-oriented play styles. So if you want to hop in, we can actually start showing it off.
Pon was the
Oh
main
wait, is this
designer
damage a
working on this
god?
Ratatoskr change, so I'm going to let him do most of the talking. But really the goal of the Acorns is to facilitate many different play styles. So each of the Acorns have, you know, specific roles or specific lanes.
I think the Acorn is glitched. What's going on there?
More with Ratatoskr than others.
Cool.
All right.
Oh, it
let's
is.
go ahead and talk about. We talked about the two trees. Let's start off with the evergreen acorn pond.
Yep, so the Evergreen Acorn is going to give you some power, some movement speed, and it's actually going to increase your maximum health pool based off how many health items you have. So obviously it's skewing more towards the raw tanky side, letting you engage in with the ultimate. And its passive is familiar for players who use the current Acorn. When Ratatoskr deals damage to an enemy god with any ability, he restores 7% of his maximum health and mana. So this lets you really
Wait,
dive
they changed
in,
that even more,
utilize
right?
all your abilities to stay healthy and be that
7%.
front line for your team, if that's the playstyle that you want to go for.
That's a
It's
lot.
probably the simplest Acorn, but it's also one that matches its current playstyle pretty closely. And a lot of people kind of like this really idea of like being the front line, engaging with the ultimate for their team.
I feel like it's what?
So
That's
that's
more
evergreen.
than now, isn't it?
And it's also important to know,
Way
I don't
more,
know
isn't
if we're in game.
It doesn't
Yes,
say
we
at the
are
moment,
in.
does it?
Awesome. You can see here that I actually have 2 Acorns following me. It should be 1. We're working on it for PTS, but know that you will have the Acorn following you. And when you buy Acorns, you can see here, now it's glowing the color. Look at that. You got a
Wait,
little
what?
friend.
We don't get the old reskins back? That
It's
was so
also
much
important to note
better.
that this works on every skin. So every skin has its own unique Acorn. So like the anime ones, they are more this kind of like cell-shaded style. For the Christmas one, it's actually the ornament. So you get a little bit of extra flair in all your skins as well.
No, the old style was so much cooler when
And
the
a good way
stripes
for your
changed.
allies and enemies to see which Acorn you're using without having to use the scoreboard.
I'm sad.
Yep, so that's
That was
Evergreen
such nice
Acorn.
visual flair.
I can show you really quickly. Just get a little bit of damage on me and then go find
I'm gonna see if I can find the old HP values.
And you can see abilities function about as you would expect them to. You get a nice burst of health. You can see also how chunky that heal is. So you can definitely sustain yourself pretty aggressively in a team fight. So this is your more frontline focused ability healing style Acorn. You can only have 1 Acorn at a time as well, similar to old Ratatoskr.
Percent of max health is powerful.
Yes. And the idea here is we want to shift you towards the playstyle that you're going towards.
I know,
If you
it's
wanna play that
definitely, it's very
frontline
different.
tank, you're going to need that health.
It was 15
that's
plus
something that you
15%
don't
of your
have with
power,
Assassin,
now it's
so this kind of
7%.
class shifts you, similar to almost Masks, just without the drawback.
That's a lot.
The next one, we
man.
got
Let's
Thick
talk
Bark
about
Acorn.
Thick Bark Acorn.
Yep. So this one is a little bit less power, but now you get bonus protections, again, class shifting in a similar way. And when Ratatoskr deals damage with an ability, he restores 3% of his maximum health. This is shared from the Lively Acorn passive. So this whole tree kind of gets that extra benefit. But Flurry now provides protections equal to the protection shred from enemy gods. So the more you shred, the more you're actually boosting your own protections, as well as Flurry just gets an additional charge. You get to use it twice. So we can buy it here. You can see I also have the passive meter kind of indicating my cooldown status. So you can get an idea of how many.
Oh my god, I really hope this stripes not being there as a temporary thing.
Come back up. Let's go back to the Odins real quick. You can see my tankiness is already up a little bit, but now when I flurry on these two Odins, I have quite a bit more protections. And I can keep stacking that up and refreshing it, especially on multiple gods, so I can get a large amount of protections very quickly if I choose to focus on that. So this lets me dive in, shred protections for my team, and be tanky so I can serve that frontline role. This is the more bruiser Acorn.
That was too quick. I want to just see what happens on the single target.
The Nettle side and start with the Bristlebush Acorn.
Yep, so Nettle is a bit more power than the Lively Acorn, but it doesn't have a passive to shift it as much. But Bristlebush is 20%, or sorry, 45 or physical power, 20% movement speed, and 20% critical strike chance. In addition...
Crit Acorn.
Yep, this is the Crit Acorn.
Did you say Crit Acorn?
Yes, it's Crit Acorn. So the old Rat used to have Dart Crit. It was in a way that was much more variable, a lot more things going on with it. This one more focused on encouraging you to dart in, get a really powerful dart out, and then follow up with basic attacks on your slow target.
They changed that since
so here you can
early
see
mining.
Dart now deals 40% increased damage, so it's just a stronger ability and can critically strike, so you can start building critical strike items to really augment it. And when Dart deals damage to any enemy, he gains 10% physical lifesteal and 10% basic attack damage. So once you dart onto a target, especially if you crit, you can just kind of.
Oh, you can't dash through them. Feels bad.
We get cooldown.
Maybe on the last one.
How many darts does it take to get a crit with 20%?
Alright, I imagine that was strong before. It looked insane.
Oh no.
Unlucky.
It's not gonna happen.
Is it? Did
there
you break
we go.
it? There we go.
See, that's why you need to actually build critical strike with this item. But there
First
you can
time
see
this item gets built in Pro League, it's gonna happen on the first start.
Yep. So lots of interesting stuff. You can now crit with Dart. You can really engage and get a sudden burst, and it's more focused on following up with basic attacks. That's the other way Ratatoskr can use is kind of like crit attacks. He can use it with his hit chain, so you're rewarded by diving in and following up with basic attacks. And then the final one is Thistlethorn, which is hard to say. I have to slow down every time I say it.
Bristlebush.
I think it's easier. It's harder than Bristlebush.
I think.
Okay, they also took something off there. There was pen on that, right? Something on PTS.
45 power,
in the mining.
Speed, no critical strike chance. But enemies hit by Acorn Blast are debuffed, taking 5% additional damage from Ratatoskr's abilities, stacking up to 3 times. Acorn Blast now fires 5 acorns. So you can see here, you got 5.
Oh, they're actually in the same cone. That's cool.
Nuts.
Important to note. Important to note.
I'm sorry.
That you only still need 3 acorns to hit the stun, like the base Acorn Blast ability.
That's actually
so that
nice.
Has been updated to be more clear, but this means that this tool is not only a much more powerful straight-up burst on targets.
Oh, trying to see the different damage numbers. Oh yeah, okay, they already increased.
Closer,
Oh wow, yeah, they are.
Reliably stunning people at range. So lots of interesting things here, but the
That's
focus
a lot
is
of damage
use
increase.
Acorn Blast, augment it, really set up bonus ability damage for the rest of your abilities, and then follow up with that ability power. So this is the more standard assassin ability user Ratatoskr experience. With
right,
this,
since we're
we
talking
also
about
did
Acorn Blast, we've got some balance adjustments to the ability, right?
I just feel like the
Correct.
flurry
So
Acorn where you
Acorn
get
Blast
2
now that
flurries
gives
is
you
so
5
good.
Acorns, we had to do some of damage adjustments and some balance adjustments to it. The big thing here is the damage for using Acorn Blast like normal Ratatoskr is basically the same. Just a bit more front-loaded, so hitting 1 Acorn is a bit more than hitting 2 and 3 in the amount of damage it does, but the total, if you like shotgun blast someone effectively, is the same. And then that means Acorns 4 and 5 deal reduced damage so that the damage doesn't go out of control. Because if it got full damage on each Acorn Blast, this one would just be the top tier Acorn. Its damage is a bit more reined in so that each Acorn has its own unique use cases and feels balanced compared to the other ones.
Oh, never mind. It's a reduction then. There wasn't an increase, there was a reduction. That's why so much.
Ratatoskr functions the way you'd expect, and now you can focus on being an ability user, a more basic attack-focused user, and darting in aggressively. You can be the bruiser for your team and really shred prots on the enemy team especially because you have two charges, so you can really keep that shred up. Or if you just want to be the front line and be super healthy,
He's just gonna be a prime
you
soul
can go
laner
the
now.
Evergreen Acorn and get a lot of health.
The self
Lots
heal.
of ways to shift Ratatoskr. Maybe we'll see him not only in the jungle, but maybe in the solo lane, maybe even in the support role if you can figure out how to make that work. Just really interesting stuff with these Acorns, and we're happy that we could bring back this kind of unique part to Ratatoskr in a way that we feel is going to be good for the character.
They removed the coolest part though. They removed the dash through.
It'd be cool to see when players are picking up specific Acorns for different situations.
Sad times.
Right. Awesome.
Right,
I think that's
our rework for
Ratatoskr.
mid-season. Yeah, that's Ratatoskr. So let's go ahead and hop into.
I was hoping for that little bit of
mid-season.
old game
Like
feeling.
Earlier, that's our
Old rat feeling.
Mid-season.
Oh,
Let's
he
go
moved
ahead and
on.
kick it off with the rest of the gods getting updated. And start off with Acorn. We're going to be increasing the slow range on Dragon Call and decreasing the cooldown on Wildstorm.
Yeah, so this
Hey.
ranged slow attack and these Wildstorm, these were actually
Again.
nerfs we did a while back, which
I
we
was
are
gonna say.
reverting. Akwong has been pretty far out of the meta for a while now. Want to give him a chance to come back. You're going to see a lot of buffs today where we were really trying to focus on gods that we feel like have been suffering and being out of the meta for a while and just trying to bring back their core features. So I think these changes in Akwong are definitely going to increase his jungle clear, definitely going to increase his ability to control a team fight with a stronger slow. So maybe we'll see the Dragon King return to his throne.
For sure. All right, next up, Apollo.
Interesting.
We're making some changes to Serenade, increasing
I like it.
physical protections
Many people are gonna hate it.
and also adjusting the mesmerize duration. And then across the sky, we're going to be increasing the scaling from the ability.
Yeah, so when we updated his passive, I believe in Season 7, we saw kind of a rise in Apollo players, but that quickly fell off. People didn't really still value him as much, and so we feel pretty safe to buff more of his utility in Serenade, making him a more effective boxer, and especially increasing
Yeah, that's fair. He wasn't really picked.
early, combined with rewarding
Need to
players
buff
for
some
using
hunters.
across the sky aggressively.
And nerf
if
Jing
you're using it
and
to like,
Heim.
actually just escape, it's as good as ever, but if you are using it to be aggressive, we want to reward you for that, and the 120% scaling didn't quite feel rewarding enough.
Physical power scaling, in case anyone was
Yes.
confused. Usually we do write that. Minor.
All right, next up on the list, we've got Ardeo, Energy Surge / Maul Prey. We're going to be increasing the Druid damage on the ability and increasing the healing range. And then Life Tap, we're going to be Heavy Charged. We're going to be increasing the slow duration on Heavy Charge.
Ooh, this is spicy.
So, we've seen RTO make a few appearances in the
Oh,
Pro
I
League.
guess I have to go up.
Specialist players. We have a few pros that really favor her, but I wouldn't really say she's been meta for quite a while. Not seeing very high pick rate across the player base or high performance at all. So looking to adjust just a few things across her kit. We felt like specifically that heal was
Ardio's
relatively
solo as well
difficult to
now.
pull off. So since it's such a conditional heal, like you
The
have
new
to hit
Helm.
an enemy with a close range attack, and
And
allies
self-heal.
have to be near you, making just that a little bit more forgiving and just a little bit increase to her base damage and slow control, which nice well-rounded buff to hopefully make sure that RTO can compete with the current scope of Guardians that she's fighting against.
All right, next up we've got Baba Yaga. We're going to be increasing the damage on Baba's Brew and then increasing the shield health that she gets from Home Sweet Home.
Yeah, Baba Yaga has been a really interesting character. I think people are really starting to realize that she can do quite a lot, especially when you get her to late game and you can really get all her damage out. But she does struggle uniquely in the early game, as well as in both surviving ganks, as well as actually bringing enough to like lane control and wave clear and boxing. And that was because Baba's Brood did really low base damage. We were worried about double stacking, but how it's actually played out and people utilize her kit, that double stacking is something that should be rewarding, but can be more rewarding than it currently is. So we're increasing the base damage there while letting it scale to a very similar amount, as well as Home Sweet Home is getting a more rounded buff to her base.
Well, think about it. I think Baba Yaga's
5 ultimate
buffing
shield,
that.
meaning that players who choose to dive her early on are going to see a little
The
bit more
stacking
difficult
item
to
buffs are already
actually hit her.
huge.
But keeping it about the same for her late game, which she should be putting herself at risk and using the shield really just to get her damage out versus being able to immune all incoming damage. We'll be keeping a close eye on her too because she's close.
I feel like she's so strong already. I
Next
don't
up,
think she
we
needs
got
this.
Bakasura making a change to Eat Minion, increasing the scaling on the self-heal, and then also increasing the protections gained.
Yes.
Bakasura is a very interesting god to balance every
Yes.
time we visit him, because there's always a group of people that think this god is completely useless, and there's a large group of people that think this is one of the best gods in the game.
He's not
And we're
good in
trying to find
Conquest.
out where in that middle
Right
ground
now.
he actually
He
lives.
is not.
So he can be really strong and really aggressive, But one of the key things to playing Baka really well is using this Eat minion and using it in combat in a way to actually use that protection buff or to heal himself up at a really critical moment. That's what separates the good Bakasuras from like the Pon level Bakasura players. So we wanted to make sure that they are properly rewarded for the there's a lot of special cases. You have to be fighting near a wave or a jungle camp, or you have to be able to use, which he can swallow back his
Yes.
regurgitate minions, which is a little known feature we added a couple months ago that
Little
people tend to
known?
forget about.
What?
You can hit those too.
People don't know that.
But we want to make sure that that feels impactful, and we wanted to buff him this update because we felt like the community has been leaning more towards that side, but we didn't want to buff his outright aggression because he's already pretty insane at that, and so we found that this was a really interesting way to go about it, and I think this is going to be good for him without pushing him over the edge.
For sure. All right, next up we've got Baron Somdi. We're going to be increasing the damage on Vivid Gaze, and for Wrap It Up, we're going to be increasing the scaling.
Yeah, Baron is an interesting character. Some people feel him as like a mid laner, but not quite there, or a support and not quite there. And we wanted to focus him being more successful in that mid lane
buffs as well.
role.
No,
so
he's gonna be solo, guys. Solo
Baron is
Baron.
going to help him wave clear, and the increased scaling on Wrap It Up is going to help with his overall combo and threatening, like actually killing targets late game as he builds more and more magical power.
What is happening?
Next up on the list, Bracken. Going to be seeing a change to Trimmers, and Trimmers will now deal an initial tick of damage whenever he starts casting the ability.
Ooh, more bursts on Bracken.
Yeah, this one was mostly a visual one.
Well, not just visual, but tactile, right? Feel.
Yeah.
That's what I was trying to think of. Like, it's strange for all these effects and like the circle starts showing up whenever, but you don't actually take a hit really until what feels like the second animation, right? So this ability is just going to feel a lot more responsive. It is technically, dealing one additional tick in the same amount of time it did before. So it's +1 ticks. However often this ability has whatever duration you want it to have, which is a very unique aspect in Smite. But no matter what, you're getting one additional tick, so it's going to be better, especially in those short-term channels. And I think we can all agree that we haven't seen probably that much Bracken lately. So we were happy to buff him and make this ability feel a lot better.
All right, we've got another Guardian up next. We've got Cerberus, Paralyzing Spit and Soul Expulsion.
Bracken with a new Spear of the Magus.
On both these abilities by 2 seconds.
Oh.
Yeah, this one, Cerberus is a Guardian that I think some people feel is pretty strong, but not quite there. We don't see him too much at a very high-end level. His overall stats are a little bit underwhelming. General perception on him is lower, so you just want to help him out, make sure that he's able to do his things often enough to feel impactful. Paralyzing Spit and Soul Explosion had very long cooldowns. These are just being decreased to be more reliable tools that you have access to more often in team fights.
All right, Chiron up next. Training exercise is going to be seeing an increase in damage, and then we're increasing the scaling of Masterful Shot.
Chiron, he's kind of been, not super meta for a while. He did have some nerfs when he first launched, when that was about the only time he's considered super
Frost
strong.
Talking about him?
He's almost more of an ability hunter. I think most people would consider him more of an ability hunter. So here you see two big improvements to his base damage and scaling damage of his abilities. This should really help him compete in lane with other hunters. I personally think Chiron's going to be really strong going into this, but we made a lot of changes to hunters. We have a few other hunters that are getting even spicier changes that we're about to talk about. So really excited to see where this meta ends up in the next patch, but I think Chiron is going to be a really good option that will probably still get overlooked. So if you're looking for a new hunter and you're not quite sure who to try, give Chiron a try. He's a really, really good feeling god to play, really good long range ability sustain to clean up kills and stuff like that. Really cool playstyle for a hunter if you're looking for something different.
All right, next up we've got Cthulhu making a change on his ultimate ability, Descendant of Madness. He is no longer going to be able to use relics while in the ultimate form.
Oh, nice. No more
so
thorns.
we talked about Cthulhu and bonus balance, but this is a change that we needed to actually have a kind of full patch for. We want to make sure that there is counterplay-wise in his ultimate state. He's getting a lot, but the amount of relics he could also use creates some visual clarity issues. Some were hidden by effects, as well as it was just a very strong thing in general. So we're going to actually make that a bit more fair in that way.
Good.
All right, next up we're talking about spicy hunter changes. Let's talk about Cupid making a change to Heart Bomb. Minions will now take 50% additional damage from the explosion and the initial hit of Heart Bomb.
I mean, I could get really specific about the balance
What?
history of Cupid and why this works, but really, I think we all know this is what Cupid needs, right? This is
What?
what the god currently suffers at. He's got good team
Jesus.
fight control. He's got good utility. We've given him better attack speed. He's got that stim just
That's so
permanently built
much.
into his ranking up of his dash. So he's just gotten some good stuff, but he still struggles a bit in lane. That's what this is there to address. We've tried to do things in the past with him where we buff his kit in all different types of situations. This tends to make him just too good at team fighting. So now hoping we can make him good in lane without breaking his team fighting. That's really what we hope to do here.
Wow.
And I think another really
All
important
right.
thing to note is for like Cupid, really skillful players can utilize this bonus damage to like snipe minions that are lower health and actually get the AoE explosion for the stun. So
Yeah,
there's
of
a lot
course.
of also skill testing in the lane that you get with this change that makes that easier to execute. So you get to look for those opportunities more.
Yeah, for sure.
All right, we've got another hunter change up next. Medusa. Viper Shot is now going to have 4 charges at all ranks, and we're increasing the scaling on the ability. Acid Spray is going to be seeing an increase in scaling and range.
What?
And then Lacerate, we're increasing the root duration.
The
Yeah,
range.
so lots of Medusa changes too.
I was gonna
Medusa is
say,
one of those
just
characters
increase
I
the
think
stupid
had,
range.
like, a very strong launch, and then we nerfed, and then we never really
Oh,
saw
40 to 45.
see
Come on,
play much
dude.
more after that.
Come
But
on,
people have that
dude.
kind of memory of Medusa. But we feel pretty safe with these buffs. She's been underwhelming and hasn't really
That's
seen
still
much
too
play.
short.
This
Make
focuses
it
on Viper
55
Shot
or
being a more
something.
consistent stem, Acid Spray being a bit more reliable as well as a bit more damage. And it's important to note that the range on Acid Spray
Well, she's got
is
huge
the
buffs though.
projectile, not the cone. So the cone isn't bigger. The actual, like, your ability to fire and hit a minion, that part is a bit longer. You have more wiggle room there. And then finally, Lacerate, locking down a target more. If you're going to use it aggressively to lock down a target as a hunter, be a bit more rewarded for it.
I'm really excited for the Medusa meta that we're about to see. This god has not really felt the power that I feel like she deserves ever since her release. Kind of scared people into over nerfing her.
Yeah, because of her range on the 2.
All right, let's talk about
too
Mulan.
dangerous.
Grapple, we're going to be increasing the training speed for this
And feels
ability,
inconsistent
also
with her basic
increasing
attack
the
range.
protections that you get. And then Divine Mastery, we're increasing the arrow damage scaling from 50% to 60%.
This is some quality of life buffs for Mulan. Grapple tends to be a little harder to stack because you're not necessarily just spamming it on anybody.
Oh, that's
You're
good.
saving it for a specific escape or an interrupt or
Okay.
an engage. So we want that to be reflected in its training speed, as well as the payoff. So we want that just to feel a little better, so you're going to get more protections. And then her ultimate is still a very common discussion point whenever we bring up Mulan balance feedback. A lot of people still feel like the ultimate is maybe a little bit too much time for what it does, locks Mulan down a little bit. So we're just increasing that scaling damage on that 3rd shot even more to make sure that it really has an impact.
Ooh, she's gonna be bad at solo as
Getting
well.
that good team fight Mulan ultimate can be really devastating to a whole team fight, but it also puts Mulan in a lot of danger. So we want to make sure that the risk reward feels balanced.
Cool. All right, let's move right along and let's talk about a Neath buff. As I hear Titan Cupcake screaming in excitement from her house. Backflip, we're going to be the animation and travel time for the ability are going to be sped up. Broken
Ooh.
Weave, all enemies are now going to be able to see the Neath base Broken Weave, even if she has a skin equipped. And then the big one
Good.
here, Unravel. We're going to be decreasing the attack speed debuff. This ability is now going to steal attack speed from enemies and buff Neath the same amount.
Wow.
Yeah,
What?
so lots of things here. The
30%
two really
steal?
big ones are Unravel becoming a more stim-like cooldown, where you're actually stealing attack speed from your opponents. So late game, Neath gets a bit more ability to actually
For
like,
4
fight
seconds.
more directly and use that ability and be rewarded for it as a DPS increase. And the other big one is Backflip being sped up. Animation times in Smite are super important, and we have a lot of consideration when we
It's massive.
increase timing or decrease timing or the base time that we choose for each ability. But this one felt like it was long, it limited options for Neath. It made one part that felt like she should be intuitive fire kit with the backflip into a spear arrow combo basically impossible
Oh. What's happening there?
to pull off. And so we've increased it to allow those things to be a bit more fluid while making sure that there's still clearly counterplay options when fighting Neath. You can still follow up things. It just feels better now.
These are big changes.
All right.
Big
Yes.
changes.
Yeah, for sure.
Gigantic changes.
Nemesis is up next. Slice and Dice going to be seeing an increase in damage.
Well, that's it.
Yeah, this is following along with what we've been doing with Nemesis. We have known she needs buffs. She's been buffed. I think this is the 3rd time like in a row right now. we want to continue to take it slow and steady with her. When Nemesis has been overbuffed in the past, and it's not a good meta for us to be in. We're still going to avoid buffing our ultimate, that unmissable type ultimate. So slice and dice, bonus damage, increased damage across the board, across all ranks. Just going to help her jungle clear, going to help her poke, and should be noted that even though these numbers are look 10 per rank, that's double when you hit the sweet spot, right? So pretty big buff to Nemesis. Hopefully should let her compete with all the other junglers. And if this doesn't quite move her forward like the last few changes, then maybe we'll look and just keep the streak alive. We're gonna get there though. We're gonna get her feeling good without pushing her too far.
Yep.
It's
All right.
100 damage.
Next, Overflowing Divinity.
100 damage on Meg 1, that's a lot.
Also an increase in the damage decrease per shot
Yes.
fired. I know that's a little bit confusing. I'll let Pon explain a little bit more.
TLDR, Overflowing Divinity is going to be a bit more of a powerful tool when using against gods that are trying to juke it. The initial hits are going to be more damaging, but we're keeping the amount that it falls off, and as well as the amount of damage it does on objectives. We're keeping that in check to make sure that he doesn't get too much damage there on still targets.
Oh, okay, yeah,
so
that
just
makes
making
sense.
a more reliable cooldown to use against moving targets.
All right, next up on the list, Set going to be seeing a little bit of a shift here, increasing the duration of Relentless. Skewer is going to be seeing an increase in damage and scaling, and then Spawn of Set is now going to deal 60 to 80% of Skewer's damage.
Pon, why don't you take this one too for me?
Yeah, so Set he is a very interesting character. Lots of really high skill testing things. Managing those clones is very difficult. But one thing that was interesting was ranking Skewer. Not only ranked your Skewer damage, but also ranked your clones. And so because you could just max those together, his early game burst was so insane if you gave Skewer any power that he would just one-shot people in lane very quickly.
Oh wow,
so we
is
had
high
to
now.
tone his damage back. Here we're making it a more powerful tool in its own right, and moving some of the damage scaling component onto actually ranking Spawn of Set. So if you want the full damage, you have to invest points there. But
I like that.
Skewer as a baseline ability that you can use at all times is going to be stronger. It'll help increase his clear speed. And also that extra second of Relentless means that when you're walking from your heartbeat camp to your blue camp, it's not going to just fall off as you try and get that last little bit of hit. You'll be able to maintain that attack speed buff as you go from camp to camp more easily. And if you have gaps in your team fight, you can also keep it alive.
All right, next up on the list, Sun Wukong.
I like that.
Undefeated body.
It's more of a jungler.
Increasing the percent of HP where the passive triggers, and also increasing the duration of the self buff. And then 72 transformations, we are increasing the duration of the Tiger Stun.
So we've seen a few little glimpses
Right, that's
of some
a lot.
meta. We're almost there. We're doing a few more small buffs to get him to a good feeling spot. Hopefully he'll be able to compete with the other solo laners in this new solo meta with the changed items.
I think he will.
Undefeated body, a lot of quality of life there. The passive, maybe you don't really feel like you're getting much out of it a lot of the time. So making it a little bit easier to trigger and making it last a little longer. The real buff here is 72 transformations. A lot of times people would be pretty torn between which ability to rank next between Master's Will and 72 transformations. And now with this Tiger Stun buff, we're making it pretty clear that you can go ahead and rank your Master's Will and keep this 1 point wonder with the full stun duration. Should make Sun Wukong a pretty intimidating foe.
Yep.
All right, we're nearing the end of balance. We got just a couple more left. Sylvanas, Wisps is going to be seeing increase in damage, and then Wrath of Terra is also seeing a damage increase.
Sylvanas is really interesting because he does bring a lot of control and utility and being able to blink ult to engage, pulling someone out of position, rooting someone and decreasing their protections are all very powerful tools, but he still struggled, and we feel like that's because he just doesn't bring enough in addition to those things. We could increase his utility, but we feel like that's going to push him in a situation that might feel too frustrating.
It is actually
so
interesting.
Damage some, making him a little bit more threatening. Obviously, he's still not going to be
damage Sylvanas. Let's go.
You with these changes, but just making him more threatening in general, especially that early Wisp change, is going to help team fight dynamics in the duo lane pretty effectively.
All right, second to last, we've got Thoth and Hieroglyphic Assault going to be seeing a little bit of a shift here, increasing the scaling on the ability, but we added some damage fall off for targets hit past 55 units of range.
Pon, I believe you did a little bit more work on this one than me as well. Could you mind taking this one? I'll save the last one. Oh,
yeah,
really?
That works.
Okay.
Yep, so we increased the scaling, and we also made the bonus subsequent damage. So when you hit gods repeatedly, they take more damage from the ability. That now also applies to minions. And so the goal with that is to make sure that when he's fighting for lane clear pressure, and when he's fighting gods that are more directly on top
Sounds
of
like a
him,
nerf
he's
at the
going to be
same time.
stronger. But his artillery mage, which creates a very difficult balancing point problem where he has to be really weak to justify that level of strength. We're toning that back, so it's still a unique strength that he brings. He can do very, very long range poke, but it's not as devastating once you get a lot of power. So taking his early game up some, taking his late game down some, still focusing on his strengths, but making them more manageable.
Okay, so this says damage increase will affect all enemies, not just gods, which is contains.
Yes.
But Pawn wants to draw. This means draw special attention to. This means he will deal more damage to minions than he used to do.
Correct.
So, and although you mentioned this kind of late game, early game, this also shifts him a little bit more to make him better lane clear, but without just increasing his overall damage output to an overall team fight. It's kind of like what we did with Cupid. Cool. All right, one
sure.
more, last one.
All right, last up for God Balance, Ymir is here. We're making a change to Frostbite, increasing the duration and also increasing the damage reduction.
So we buffed Ymir, we gave him that quality of life walled feature that people have been wanting for so long, but that didn't really do much to him. Like, we know that's a good feeling ability, and there's a lot of theoretical
I thought he was a lot
bonus
stronger.
damage, or not bonus damage, but just a better gameplay there. You can make plays, but it didn't really affect him too much. So we were looking at Guardians that were just still underperforming statistically. Ymir was surprisingly low towards the bottom, and looked to just buff his passive. This is a pretty strong buff. You know, I'm a little scared about those extra swings, basic attacks that Ymir is going to get in on that increased frostbite duration. That's a little scary. And then also we're just increasing the defensive element here because Ymir already has quite a lot of aggression. We wanted to make sure we added something to this balance change to help him play more like a traditional Guardian and still excel in that role. So now he's going to reduce the damage output. That's a 5% increase there, which is that's a pretty significant amount when we're talking about true damage reduction out of other gods. So the final buff of the mid-season patch is Ymir, and you know I couldn't go to a more fitting god. And we got it all done in under 2 hours, but yeah, I know I'm tired already.
Yeah, I know for sure.
We still have lots of cool stuff to talk about.
Balance. Lots of cool stuff to talk about. We'll get to Avatar in just a second, but we also want to highlight just a few more skins coming out in the mid-season update. We've actually got the start of a new event called the New Moon event. Take that as you guys will, with some awesome skins. And the first one is going to be Tornado Tech Kukulkan. And this one is really awesome.
We all know who the next god is, guys.
Skins, and the card art is awesome.
Ooh, that does look cool.
This one, we've kind of had this like mecha Kukulkan idea rolling around in our minds for a long time.
There we go.
Oh, wow. I like that a lot.
Just seeing the separation in all the elements.
Normally I'm not a fan of mecha skins, but this one really
as we take
fits.
Our mechs, we continue to try these on gods with completely different body types. You know, I think we have a lot of humanoid mechs that we maybe overdone in past years, but this one feels really different than all the rest.
Mm-hmm.
For sure.
You know, maybe if you missed out on that tier 5 Kukulkan last year, this will be your new main here.
This one's looking super sick. We've got another skin in the New Moon event that drops on July 14th. And this one is Pinata Party Kumbhakarna. And of course, we got to shout out our boy Wolf Dog for this amazing.
Oh my gosh. What?
Yes,
that is so
look
cool.
at him.
I swear, Kumbhakarna has some of the best skins.
That is so cool.
That's so funny. It's awesome.
Oh my god.
Oh my goodness. Just look at the textures there. Seeing the flaps and all the paper. It's so good.
Yeah,
One of his death animation has like candy
I
flying
love that.
everywhere.
Oh, it has to.
Ooh,
That's awesome.
I don't know. I love the detail on that, on those pieces of paper.
I love the
really
Rhino
amazing
Warlord
job
one,
by the
but that one is
sure.
top notch.
Speaking of a really amazing job by the art team, we've got another skin coming in the viewer store. It's going to be Base Demon Raijin, and he is joining the rest of the EDM crew to play some tunes on the background. I heard from the animation team he's got a
not beating
VXG
Slam Dunk Odin.
where he jams out with everybody.
Yeah, there we go. So this is really exciting because Raijin hasn't had a skin in a while. This is also exciting because this is going to be in the viewer store.
Only getting that if I... Okay. What is going on? Alright. Can you refresh? Let's try that again. Ooh.
July 14th. And I don't know whose twisted joke it was to put the skin in game, but
Wait,
I'm
who's
already
this?
creeped out.
It is
The
creepy.
The
Oh,
creepy
he's an army.
clown discussion for a skin has been going on forever, and I've
That
been
is actually a really
mostly
good fit
opposed to it.
and a
But
really good skin.
we got this skin pitch within the dev team, and it just fit the goddess really well.
It
And we
does.
found a
It's
way to do
amazing.
it to make it cool, and get the colors and the outfit right. It was not an easy skin to design, but I'm really happy with how it turned out, and she looks great.
I'm a fan.
Yeah, this is absolutely amazing.
And I hate
that
clown
wraps it
skins,
up
so.
for some of the other skins that are coming in the mid-season update, but we know why you're all here. We've got the Avatar Battle Pass coming out in the next update, and we absolutely can't wait to get into more detail with it. If you guys missed the announcement earlier this week, here's a trailer for you guys.
I might have to mute that because I don't actually know if they're playing some copyrighted music anywhere in between. And I don't want to get a strike for that. Most of you have probably seen this by now anyways. I mean, I showed it on the... in the background of my own video, and otherwise Hyros has already uploaded it with sound as well. So I'm just going to talk over it. I'll have another look at those. Not really much I can say here because we've talked about all of this in great detail already, but let's see. Maybe they show them a little bit more in game, but at the same time they're not really showing the other things in game, so I'm not entirely sure if they will. But they're definitely going to have to tell us about the prestige track as well. So that's going to be interesting how that works out this time. Okay. Oh, this is where I can unmute, hopefully.
That's right, Avatar: The Last Airbender and The Legend of Korra coming to Smite in the next update. We're going to get right into it. I've got AJ still with me, but I've got Bananimation from the animation team here to break it all down. Bananimation, how are you doing?
Hi, I'm
I can move down.
good. I'm so excited to be here. How are you guys?
This is super
Good?
awesome. Doing amazing now that we get to talk about Avatar. It's so
Tired
good.
out from all that balance, but very excited
Oh my gosh,
to
there's
show
so much.
the amazing work that Bananimation and our art team has done on these skins. I don't think I'm exaggerating when I say that these skins have some of the most production value. I'm talking the amount of time and effort our team massively put into all three of these characters, and it really shows.
Yeah, for sure. I was talking to some community members on Reddit, and like a lot of the work is like close to, if not above, what we do for tier 5 skins. Just so much love and attention went into these characters.
I mean, it makes sense
Before we
considering
break it all down,
the brand
all
that they
these
got for
skins are
that.
going to be available in the Avatar Battle Pass. There's going to be a main track and a prestige track. The Avatar State skins and the Blue Spirit skins are going to be on the prestige track. But if you guys unlock the premium track, which is going to be 750 gems, you'll be able to start unlocking all of these Avatar skins, plus a boatload of other Avatar-themed cosmetics that the team put in a ton of work into. And let's go ahead and get started looking at some of these skins. And we're going to start with Zuko Susanoo.
Yes, oh my gosh. There we go.
All the card art is so good. So Anna, I know you took point on Zuko. So what was it like working on the collaboration and bringing Zuko to life in game?
Oh my gosh. So I am a huge Avatar fan. This is really a dream come true for me. I've been like a fan since it came out. I've watched it like 9 times, so it's crazy. It was just nuts. So I was animation point on Zuko. The team did a really great job adapting Susanoo's animations.
How do you watch this show 9 times?
I don't even
How?
know. I don't have words to
It's so
describe.
good. And yep, there we go. We've got Pawn, our loyal driver in game. And Anna, I'll let you take it away as we go through the abilities.
All right, so he's got
Just
the
kinda
fire
talk about
effects.
some
Let's
of
go.
the animation work that you guys put into the skin.
I really
Sure.
hope his second version doesn't have those.
Susanoo originally just has 1 sword, so something that we wanted to do was incorporate 2 swords.
The 3 years better be good.
She does use the dual
Like a
swords.
fire projectile.
So I actually went in and updated an animation by our friend Jim, who's now on
Oh,
Paladins, and added
that is cool.
second sword and the slash for the in-hands.
that is
And
sick.
it's
See that
very,
where it
very
splits
quick, but
open?
I believe it's also in his one. He also has it in a bunch of emotes as well.
Oh yeah, it's
but,
2 blades as well.
Austin killed it with the effects for this. It's so cool.
Oh my god, okay.
The ult.
That is amazing.
Which I'm excited for that one too, since we updated the animation there.
Now just some firebending. Oh my god,
Fire
this is
looks
so cool.
Yeah.
The double weapon animation. Yes.
Oh my goodness. Ooh, every time
Oh
I see
my
it,
god.
I'm so excited.
This is so well executed.
This is awesome.
This is
And I'm
amazing.
just waiting for Pond to fire this ultimate ability. There we go.
Jesus, that is so cool.
So that we tried, especially on the animation team, and I think across the Avatar team in general, we tried to incorporate as much reference as we could from the actual show. So this was, the ult is an animation that Zuko does when he fights Azula at the very end, and it was so cool to like frame by frame that animation.
Oh,
I
I didn't even
had
notice. I
fun.
didn't look at him first.
I'm
sure,
so
and I
impressed
know-
with how much research the art team did. They, you know, a lot of people on the team were already big fans of the show, but many others who were just learning about it
Oh
got
yeah.
really well familiarized with the show. Oh, this special emote.
Yes. So Victoria, our animator, did this one. This is his VXG emote. It's 8 directional, so you can just fly around.
The hands look a bit
fire
weird, but
daggers, super cool. That one was harder to think of what to do for Zuko since he doesn't do that in the show. But we figured, he eventually goes on to be such an experienced firebender. He more than likely learns how to do something like this. It was that was
for
really
sure.
fun to play with.
Yeah, and I know all the emotes are new. Apparently, all the victory and defeat screens are new for all of these skins. All of them have VXGs, and I believe all of them have specific death animations as well.
I didn't see for that dual
Tons
wield.
of work went into
The
it.
dual wield is so
I
sick
do
when he
want to
gets the
preface
second
before
sword
we
out.
head into the voice pack lines that just tons of work that goes into these crossovers, especially for one that's of this magnitude, and tons of different difficulties that we went into working with Nickelodeon here. We weren't able to work with the original voice actors for Zuko and Aang. We were able to work with the original voice actor for Korra. But Nickelodeon was with us every step of the way. They helped us cast actors. They were there directing. So it was really awesome to have great partners in them in order to get these skins finished up and out to you guys.
Yeah, definitely.
I challenge you to an Agni Kai. Firebending in and of itself is not something to fear, but if you don't respect it, it'll chew you up and spit you out like an angry Komodo rhino.
Cool. So that wraps it up for Zuko Susanoo. Anna, is there anything else that you wanted to show off? Because I know you put in a ton of work and you took point on this one.
Yeah, I mean, I'm just really excited for everybody to get in there and like.
I feel like somebody's gonna make
emotes.
an angry
His
post about the
recall
voice
that
packs
Louis
anyways,
did is
but
amazing. The taunt emote that Tori did is fantastic.
Honestly-
so definitely just I hope you guys really enjoy. Like AJ said, we put a lot of research into the different things that we picked for. Like,
somebody pointed out that the
littlest
original
things
voice
like
actors are also
abilities
too
as
old
well.
at this point, so
So definitely.
The taunts, claps, waves are all completely new too, right?
Yep, all
yeah.
of it is new for him. Yep.
We honestly, these are so beyond tier 4, and they weren't even really quite what we call a tier 5. We just started calling them God tier around the studio. That's what we call
Right,
them.
yeah.
These are essentially brand new characters that happen to
is
have the abilities of God.
what I thought was gonna happen for Ruby.
Some of the craziest skins.
And
we've
this time they
ever
did
done.
it.
They look so cool. I can't wait to show
I
off
know.
the next ones.
All right,
I'm
let's
glad
move
they
on
did.
to the next one. Korra Scotty, and I am super
And
excited
Naga.
for this. I'm a big Korra fan. Oh, we've got Naga by her side as well. Got the card art. Naga, the trusty polar bear dog. This is super awesome.
I love how our artists were able to adapt to the show's style, and like these 2D illustrations, they're card arts. These are brand new illustrations by Hi-Res Studios, and these models, our team working to reference them and making sure they look like the show, and they look straight out of the show. It's amazing.
Yeah, Casey.
Naga's so much
did an
bigger than
amazing
Scotty.
job on the characters in the card art, and then Anna, one of our other artists, did an amazing job. Both of them as a team. She did the backgrounds, and there's just so much detail, and it really does feel like they're from the show, which is really cool.
It's already a good joke in the SMITE community that Calder almost feels like
Calder.
a god of his own. But when you see
No,
this
no,
Naga
Calder. I was gonna make that
coming at
joke.
you,
Oh,
you're
he's
definitely
so
gonna agree.
I was gonna say Calder is
I'll let
more
Anna
of
kinda
the
talk
god
about
part,
what
you
went
know.
into making sure Naga was able to fit onto this rig, but he's much bigger than Calder.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. So,
Whoa,
Allie
what?
was our point on animation
What?
for Korra and Naga.
Wait, hold
and
on.
She did
She
such an
swapped
amazing job.
elements.
So much went into, especially like the proportions for Naga. If you can see her legs, her front legs are so much bigger because she's a polar bear dog. She's not just a dog. So we had to go through
Right.
and adjust all of her different animations to make sure that
Oh,
they fit the
it's
original
water basics.
Calder animations, as well as she does have some new animations too, which is really fun and exciting.
yeah.
For Cora herself,
Oh my
we
god.
actually worked a lot with this water rig that you can see she throws for her in hands, and it kind of, yeah, when she's running around, it appears in her idle, and when she jumps up and down. That was a really, really hard technical challenge for our team. It was a rig in itself, which we had to do a lot of back and forth with our rigging department. Shout outs to Lindsay and Pamela. They were so amazing to work with.
That's so funny.
And it's just
Squiggly
like
worm.
so much, it's such a silly thing, like a little water rig, but so much hard work went into making it look cool. And I love how
I love the
Brock
old.
used it in the in-hands rather than Scotty throwing her spear like she does. Cora water bends that that water, which is so cool.
And it's important to note that Cora is an avatar, so you know Zuko's moves were all fire themed, but specifically for the Cora skin, we specifically wanted to highlight bending of multiple elements throughout her kit. So you see her one projectile is a fire projectile, her basics and her 2 are water, her or her basics and her 3, I'm sorry, are water. It's a water pool, and her ultimate is a
I was wondering if that's
air
supposed to be
swirling rocks
water
tornado. So you get all 4 elements in the Cora kit.
Yeah, for sure. I have a special request for Pawn after he does the VXG. I'd like to see the death animation for this skin because I heard about it. And
yeah, so that was Cora's. Oh no, there she goes.
oh,
So
shout outs
it's
to
so
Zahir.
yeah, I know. So again, we tried to take references as much as we can from the show, and not only are we huge Avatar: Last Airbender fans, we're huge Korra fans too. And I love Korra so much. Allie, again, she was point on Korra. She has so much passion and love for this show. And
imagine that walking down on your lane with that massive
part
boat.
from the show is a little bit darker. You guys know Zahir is an airbender that gets really strong, and he actually like causes Korra to have this kind of mental bending crisis. So her death animation represents that. Is a reference to that time where she kind of lost it all.
The Legend of Korra show is got some very emotional themes to it. I remember watching that. It's scary, you know.
Yeah, definitely. It's funny too because when we were working on Korra, especially, a lot of folks were like, "Oh my gosh, that's so dark." And we're like,
yeah, right.
I mean, it's Korra. Korra's a little bit different than yeah.
Than the first show, yeah.
All right, and
Where's
as
this jump
Pawn is
stamp?
jumping around showing off that Team Avatar jump stamp, let's take a couple listens to the voice pack.
Oh, it's the Kanaga picture as well.
My mission will always be to use Rava's light spirit to guide the world toward peace and balance. Unless you want to be Naga's afternoon snack, you better back off.
That is Korra Scotty for you guys. Again, I'm super excited for this one, but we've got one more. The main attraction, as I would like to say, my favorite. I'm a Merlin main. Now we've got Aang Merlin coming to the battleground, and as we show the card art and the turnaround, and I'll kind of let you talk about what went into Aang, because apparently we started from scratch pretty much for this new skin.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Oh, I still can't get over that Janet Varney's in her game, so I'm just like
yeah.
But yeah, so much went into Aang. We tried to use as much as we could for Zuko and Scotty while also making sure it fit that their characters from the show. But Aang, since he's such a different size than Merlin, we had to completely build him from the scratch up. He is definitely like AJ said, we were referring to him pretty much as God tier. All of his animations are new, and shout outs to Brock, who was animation point on Aang. He did such an amazing job, and definitely the passion from the entire team across the board, not just the animation team, really shows on so many of his animations. Again, please look for those little references we peppered in, because it's just, we had so much fun doing it.
It's crazy because they could have done it so easily with Ramen if they wanted to, but they did go the extra mile here.
Our animator Victoria, she's using that water rig I talked about. This is kind of one of the first water bending moves that Katara teaches Aang. She kind of took reference from that to put it in there.
This is so good. I cannot wait to see it in game.
Yes.
And all of these characters just have so much depth to them that we can't even show absolutely everything. When you start playing them for real, you'll get to feel it.
Oh my god.
Yeah,
she's-
for sure.
Oh, you're so cool.
Just
Yeah, like
touch
because of-
upon, shoot some more basics, please.
So that's gonna be a
Yeah,
win
these
now?
things are
Yes.
Awesome.
Yes.
That is one of my favorite
Oh
things
my god.
about Aang. I believe it was Sean, and I'm sorry if I got that mixed up on our animation team that did those. But they're honestly one of my favorite basic attack sets in our game. They just feel really fluid and they're fun to fire off. I don't know, I just really like those.
And so, Aang fit Merlin well in our mind. We
Oh,
really
and the
tried to
passive
focus
is the
on each of
rock
these
effect?
characters when
Like
making our
the
decisions
amplifying?
around their combat and their magic.
See how
and their
some basic
powers,
has like
what
the
fits
rock
best.
effect?
So, as
Yeah.
an avatar, Aang has the mastery over multiple elements.
Oh my god.
So does Merlin. So here you'll see his arcane stance with the.
So he gets his rocks around him
swirling
as well.
ability, and the pull has been pivoted to
This
air.
passive.
The fire is fire, and ice is water. And Earth is reflected in his passive stim, which can buff his own basic attacks. You see all four.
Oh my
elements
god,
here,
that's so cool.
and you see that iconic pose on the stance change. That is
The
such
effects.
amazing effects and animation treatment. It's beautiful.
Oh, that's so
Yeah,
good.
definitely.
And then Pon was kind of showing it off earlier, but on
Jeez,
the
that's
Fire
crazy.
Stance 2, we actually completely changed the models for the dragons.
Yeah,
Right
so...
there to. Oh yeah, sorry. Go ahead.
Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead, AJ. That's fine.
You know better about the show than I do in animation, but they are referencing the legendary fire-bending dragons. Essentially, in the Avatar universe, there is a creature that essentially bestowed each bending element to humans, and these are the referencing the fire dragons that helped establish all fire bending in that universe.
For sure.
Yeah.
I love the blizzard
Alright,
effect so much
John,
though.
Seeing
our model
all
is-
the
what I'm on.
abilities.
Yeah. Sorry, I just want to say, like, John went above and beyond on those dragons. Like, that was something that kind of came in the last minute. And he was like, yeah, I can do it. And they look so cool.
Love
The
this VXG.
iconic air scooters, the VXG.
Yeah.
It's so good. Pon, can you hit us with the recall whenever you get a second?
Oh my god,
Yes,
what?
yes,
Gotta have the
Surfing.
glider. Gotta have the glider in there.
Oh, it's perfect.
Oh, and he
And,
uses the staff
one
as
more
well when he
special
jumps.
request, the clap emote.
I was
don't
wondering
have
if
it,
they're
but
gonna implement the staff
we
at all.
can
Should have
working
looked
with
at
the
the
rest of the
waves and
animation
claps
team.
and stuff for all of these ones.
Oh, no, he doesn't have
Oh
it.
no, doesn't have it.
all
No.
slash
He
all
does
emotes,
the.
slash all emotes. You can't all emotes it? You can cheat that now. Does it work on them? Oh well. Oh,
Well,
okay.
that'll just be a fun surprise for you.
Yeah. But yeah, as you guys can see, a ton of work went into all the abilities, all the animations, like we said earlier. All the emotes are done. New victory, defeat screens. Team put in so much work, and we're so excited to have
So
this.
cool. This is crazy good. I'm not even mad that the prestige
so
ones
yeah, let's go ahead and
keep
take
the
a
same
listen
stuff.
to the Aang Merlin voice pack.
Because that's what it seems to be.
Have you ever rode on the hopping llamas? Or surfed on a giant koi fish? What about the hog monkeys? Man, what do you do for fun around here? If you want to be a bender, you have to let go of fear.
That is the voice pack for Aang Merlin. And before we head on to talk about the prestige track, we do want to show off just a couple of the other cosmetics
do the
that
taunt
you'll get
emote.
as a part of the battle pass. Looks like Pon has already got some wards equipped and a global.
Wait, they are going to
emotes.
show us the prestige
Of course, we had to
ones. I
include
want.
your boy Appa into the game, so there'll be a ward skin for Appa and Naga, I believe, as well as a ton of other jump stamps and global emotes.
Abba.
There we go. He is there.
He's spinning around.
I saw that one on Twitter.
And then we've got
And I
the
think
Robin
the-
Vatu death mark from Korra.
What? Oh.
Yes, it's so cool.
All right, and I think the only other thing we haven't seen is the global emotes.
Oh wow.
My cabbages.
So-
Shout outs
so
to
happy.
the unlucky cabbage vendor. there's
Oh my
apparently
god, the
going to be some
effect,
additional
though.
audio for that global emote.
The
It's
way it
still
goes
being
up with the...
worked on in
Oh my god,
depth,
that's
but
so cool.
tons of awesome content in this battle pass. Let's get right into the prestige track. So like I said earlier, the battle pass is going to have a premium track for 750 gems, and then once you complete the premium track, you unlock the prestige track for free. That way you can keep on grinding to unlock more rewards. And the first skin from the prestige track that we want to show off is Blue Spirit Susano.
I want to see if the animations are
Yeah, so
different.
cool.
If he doesn't
This
have
one's
the
So
so
again,
fire.
cool.
shout out to Casey and Anna for doing this card art. Oh, it's actually my computer background right now 'cause it's so cool. Everything that went into these is really fun.
There we go. And all the models for all these skins just look so clean. So that one's
Awkward
gonna be
silence.
coming your way as a part of the prestige track. And I know you were saying that this one almost didn't make the cut.
Yeah,
And you guys
we
pushed for
actually,
it.
we initially weren't gonna do another skin for Zuko, and a bunch of us on the team were like, hang on, we need the Blue Spirit in there because it's really, really cool. And plus, I think the cool thing about him is that if you're not an Avatar fan, it's still a really cool skin.
Yeah, I agree.
He's like a ninja with a cool mask on.
Especially because he keeps the
But I
animation
think for
small.
those Avatar fans, like, sorry for the spoiler, but it is kind of a huge part of Zuko's character as well. And heck yeah, I'm so excited that we got him in the game.
For sure.
Yeah.
All right, let's move on to the next skin in the prestige track. It's Avatar Korra, Scotty. And this is her once she embraces Rava and is in her avatar state.
Yes, this is my
The
other
picture looks so
wallpaper
cool.
on my other monitor. It's I had to have two.
Cool.
So beautiful.
And just as a note here, so these prestige track skins are kind of like T2 versions of the base skins in the track. So no new additional effects or anything, but we've updated the models significantly.
That's fair. I mean, the
Yeah,
base
this
skins
is,
are amazing anyway.
Korra's like later in the show look, where she goes through that crisis I was talking about with Zahir, and then cuts her hair off and kind of finds herself again, and then just ends up becoming this ultimate powerful avatar. So we really wanted to show that off in the game. Plus, like, Rava just looks really cool, so that on Korra is just bonus. I know it only happens like briefly in the show, but we went with it.
I love the attention to detail the team gave towards the show. These small moments, these big moments, they're all represented here. The people, when we announced this, people were like, cabbages, we need the cabbages, like they thought we would never do it. Come on, we were way ahead of that. We had cabbages ready to go from day one. Come on.
Yes.
Gotta believe in
the
animation.
Well, the whole team. Yeah, the cabbage guy, actually, one of the card arts that Casey pitched had the cabbages guy, and Aang was just like flying through and knocking the cabbage guy back. It was great.
All right, let's move on to the last skin in the prestige track, Avatar Aang Merlin. And this is Aang in his avatar state towards the end of book 3, where he has his iconic fight with the Fire Lord.
One of my favorite moments from any TV show or movie or game ever was this fight. Oh my gosh.
So
I just
epic.
love how strong and powerful he looks. Oh, it's so good.
Definitely.
There we go.
There he is. So
And
a
as
cool
you can
thing about this skin.
Looks so cool.
I'm sorry, Isaiah. Go ahead.
No, go ahead, Anna.
Oh, I was gonna mention that scar on his back. Because that's, he gets hit with the lightning for the first time, and kind of like Korra, it knocks him out of commission. So John went in there, our modeler, and put that scar on his back. And also, I don't know if you'll ever get to see it, but it is on his foot as well. We did pay close enough attention.
Super awesome. All the attention to detail, that scar. When I first saw it, I was like, no, he's got the scar from his run-in with Azula. It's crazy.
Definitely.
But yeah.
Wow.
So that wraps it up for our Avatar Battle Pass section. Tons and tons of work went into these skins. There's tons
just
of
so
awesome
cool.
content. I want to pass it to Anna really quick because I know she has some people that she wants to shout out because this was a tremendous effort from multiple people on the team.
Yeah. So I've kind of peppered in a few names here and there, but this was one of the first times we had the opportunity to kind of, we've been calling it a strike team, have a smaller team of people kind of stepping up and becoming creative leads on a project, myself included, which, oh my gosh, like, I'm gonna faint. I just want to make sure those people get credit where credit is due. So shout out to our art director and concept artist, Mark Ross. Austin was a producer with the help of our producer, Ashley. He also did all of the effects for all the skins and some of like the cosmetics for the global emotes and everything like that. Huge shout out to John for modeling. He, like I said before, he went above and beyond and did those dragons. And I love seeing Naga, and she just looks so perfect, just like Naga. Pamela and Lindsay from our rigging team were so wonderful to work with, especially for animation, back and forth with them a lot. Brock and Allie were points on Aang and Korra, and then I was point on Zuko. I'm not going to shout myself out because they deserve a lot more credit than I do. DJ, Jeff, Chris from our tech art team helped to, bring everything from everywhere
Oh my god.
together.
Look at the background, I didn't notice.
And then Casey and Anna C did the card arts. Beautiful. Noah, Andrea, and Chad did the audio. Jen she's our SMITE marketing producer. She really had a huge hand in making sure that we could communicate with Nickelodeon, make sure everything was up to par with them, and then also like sending the little things that we've done to them and hearing their response was really exciting. Brett in the Alacrity team, Anna, Renee, Thomas, and Kalani did the 2D intro and the cinematic, and that was like, is that from the show? Trevor, the VP of Business Development. We would not have had this project without Trevor, so huge shout out to him. Tina did the writing and the voice acting. And then AJ, thank you so much for being the game design consultant. We needed your help on some of those moments for sure. And then Ben, our SMITE art director, he was there the whole step of the way, making sure things would fit in our game as well. And then just a special thank you to the support of the leads and the managers and just the entire Titan Forge team. Everybody really came together to make sure that these skins were something that we were all really proud of and really were something that would represent the show as much as we love the show. We want it to be super cool in our game. So yeah, definitely.
Shout outs to the special Avatar Superfan Council, which we created amongst the studio. Yes. Even for people outside the SMITE team, we created a special, a smaller strike team of people who are really into Avatar fandom to be our go-to point on asking questions, on helping us decide which characters to choose and how to make them fit into the kits. They were super helpful. Stephanie and Gabby from the video teams especially. Thank you so much to them. And everyone else who just shared their voices and playtest the characters. And helped us iterate through this process. I went back and checked this because people were asking. The first email I have in my work email about this project started in last November, beginning of it. I've been working on these characters for 8 months. That's longer than we work on most gods. And it was a huge effort from the whole team. And so I'm just really happy with how it's turned out. It's really amazing. So thank you to all those people that have been animation just listed.
For sure. Shout outs to the entire team. Thank you so much to the community. Your excitement has been electric amongst the studio. We're excited that you're excited. Thanks so much for tuning in. That wraps it up for our update show. Thanks for hanging in there. I know it's been a long one, but we've still got SMITE content coming up for you next. We've got SMITE the Casters up next. Not SMITE the Devs, SMITE the Casters. Be on the lookout for PTS info, and be sure to keep it locked here on twitch.tv/SMITEgame. We'll see you later.
Be on the lookout, they say, instead of telling us the time. Well, anyways, we're gonna head right over and do the patch notes review with all the numbers and everything else included. For now, thank you very much for watching. If you're new to the channel, feel free to click the sub button and maybe the bell, so you get notified of future videos, because we're gonna have a lot of fun with all these changes and everything around it. With that, thanks for watching. Duke Sloth out.